Billionaire CEO dated a homeless girl to win a bet, but she stole his heart instead. Before we dive into this incredible journey of love, redemption, and unexpected connection, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. We love hearing from our viewers around the world. Now, let's begin. The bet was simple: date her for 30 days, make her fall in love, then walk away with $50,000 and bragging rights. But as Theodore Mitchell watched Jane Williams sleep on that park bench, her jacket pulled tight against the October chill, her face peaceful despite the cardboard she called a bed, he realized he'd made a terrible mistake. Not in taking the bet, though that was despicable enough. No, his mistake was thinking he could spend 30 days with someone and not see their humanity. That he could look into her eyes every day and not wonder what dreams lived behind them. That he could hold her hand and not feel the warmth of a soul that refused to break, even when the world had given her every reason to shatter. The bet was supposed to be easy. But Jane Williams, with her infectious laugh and unshakable hope, was anything but easy. And now, with 27 days gone and 3 days left, Theodore Mitchell, billionaire, CEO, untouchable, was the one who'd fallen hard. The conference room on the 42nd floor of Mitchell Industries smelled like leather, ambition, and expensive cologne. Theodore Mitchell sat at the head of the mahogany table, his steel-gray eyes scanning the quarterly reports with the precision of a man who'd built an empire from calculated risks and cold decisions. At 34, he was everything San Francisco's elite admired, sharp-featured with dark blonde hair that never seemed out of place, a jawline that could cut glass, and a net worth that made grown men stammer. But right now, he wasn't thinking about profit margins or market shares. He was watching his so-called friends make fools of themselves. "Come on, Theo," Bradley Worthington III drawled from across the table, swirling his third scotch of the afternoon. "You've conquered everything else. Business. Real estate. That blonde from the charity gala last month. What's left to prove?" Theodore's fingers drummed against the armrest. "I don't need to prove anything to you, Bradley." That's exactly what someone who's scared would say. This from Jonathan Pierce, whose family money was old enough to have its own Wikipedia page. He leaned forward, his eyes glinting with that particular brand of cruelty that came from never being told no. "Face it, Mitch. You're untouchable up here in your tower. When's the last time you did something that actually challenged you?" "I closed the Nakamoto deal last week. 16-hour negotiations, 3 languages, and a cultural minefield. That challenging enough for you?" Bradley laughed, the sound harsh and mocking. "That's business. I'm talking about something real. Something that requires actual human emotion, which, let's be honest, you've got the capacity of a tax return for." Theodore's jaw tightened. He knew he should walk away. These quarterly boys' club meetings were vestigial anyway, hangovers from their Harvard days when they'd thought the world owed them everything and they'd been mostly right. But Bradley's words had found their mark, digging into that small, secret part of Theodore that wondered if his father had been right. If building walls around your heart was the only way to build an empire, what exactly are you proposing? Theodore heard himself ask, and immediately regretted it. Jonathan's smile spread like oil on water. A bet. A real one. Not some Wall Street garbage about stock picks. "I'm listening." Bradley set his glass down with a decisive clink. "There's a homeless girl. Young, early 20s maybe. Black girl, pretty in that, rough around the edges way. She's usually down on Market Street, near the Powell station." Something cold slithered down Theodore's spine. And you date her," Jonathan said, as if it were the most reasonable thing in the world. 30 days. Make her fall in love with you. Real love, not just gratitude or whatever. Then walk away." The room fell silent except for the distant hum of the city below. Theodore could feel his pulse in his temples. "That's cruel," he said quietly. "That's the point," Bradley replied. "You're always going on about how emotions are liabilities, how attachment is weakness. Well, prove it. Show us you can get close to someone, Someone who has nothing, who you can't impress with your money or your name, and still walk away clean. Do that, and we'll each put 50 grand in the pot. That's 100,000 for a month's work. I make that in a day. Then you don't need to prove anything. Jonathan's voice was silk over steel. But we all know you won't walk away from a challenge. It's not in your DNA. Theodore stood, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a god's-eye view of San Francisco. From up here, people were ants. Problems were abstract. Suffering was statistical. He could see Market Street from here, a gray ribbon cutting through the city, but he couldn't see the individual faces of the desperate, the forgotten, the homeless. Maybe that was the problem. Why her specifically? He asked. Bradley joined him at the window. Because Jonathan and I saw her last week. She was giving away half her sandwich to some old guy who looked worse off than her. Who does that? Someone with nothing, sharing the nothing they have? She's either a saint or an idiot, and either way, she's perfect for this. She'll believe in you. She'll trust you. And that's what makes this interesting. Theodore's reflection stared back at him from the glass. Expensive suit, perfect hair, empty eyes. When had he become this? When had the boy who'd cried at his mother's funeral turned into the man who could consider this experiment? And if I refuse? Then we know the truth, Jonathan said softly. That Theodore Mitchell, for all his billions and bluster, is scared of a homeless girl. The manipulation was obvious. Textbook, even. But that didn't make it less effective. Theodore had spent his entire life proving people wrong. Proving his father wrong when the old man said he'd never make anything of himself. Proving his ex-fiancée wrong when she'd said he was incapable of success without her family's connections. Proving every skeptical investor, every doubting board member, every sneering competitor wrong. But this was different. One condition, Theodore said, surprising himself. If I do this, and I haven't agreed to anything, I do it my way. No interference from either of you. You don't approach her, you don't sabotage it, you don't exist for these 30 days. Understood. Bradley and Jonathan exchanged glances. Agreed, they said in unison. And if she finds out about the bet? Then you lose, Jonathan said simply. The whole point is that she believes it's real. That you convince her you're capable of actual human connection. If she learns the truth, game over. Theodore turned from the window. Give me 24 hours. To think about it. To decide if I'm the kind of man who would do this. The answer came at 3 in the morning, when Theodore couldn't sleep and found himself watching old home videos on his laptop. His mother, alive and radiant, laughing at something his 5-year-old self had said. His father, young and not yet hardened by loss, looking at his wife like she'd hung the moon. Love makes you strong, Teddy, his mother's voice echoed from the speakers. Don't ever let anyone tell you different. But she'd been wrong. Love had destroyed his father after her death. It had turned a vibrant man into a ghost who drank himself to sleep and taught his son that caring too much was a weakness that would kill you. Theodore closed the laptop. At dawn, he called Bradley. I'll do it. Market Street at noon was a symphony of chaos. Street vendors hawked their wares in multiple languages, tourists snapped photos of cable cars, and businesspeople rushed past the human detritus of the city. The homeless, the mentally ill, the forgotten, with practiced indifference. Theodore stood outside Powell Station, dressed down in dark jeans and a simple black sweater that probably still cost more than most people's monthly rent, but at least didn't scream, billionaire. He'd left his Rolex at home, worn his oldest leather jacket, and taken an Uber instead of his Tesla. Now he just had to find her. Bradley had sent him a photo, grainy, clearly taken without permission. A young black woman with wild natural hair pulled back in a makeshift ponytail. High cheekbones, full lips, and eyes that seemed too bright for someone living on the streets. She was smiling in the photo, which somehow made the whole thing worse. He found her an hour later, and the photo hadn't done her justice. Jane Williams sat on a sleeping bag outside a closed storefront, a cardboard sign propped against her knees, homeless and hungry. Anything helps. God bless. She wore layered clothes, a flannel shirt over a hoodie over what looked like 2 other shirts, and jeans that had been patched multiple times. Her sneakers had holes in them. But it was her face that stopped him. She was reading. An actual book, its cover long since torn away, its pages yellowed and dog-eared. And she was completely absorbed in it, occasionally smiling or frowning at whatever story held her attention, as if she weren't sitting on a San Francisco sidewalk with everything she owned in a battered backpack beside her. Theodore had prepared a dozen opening lines. Smooth entrances. Calculated approaches. But watching her, this young woman who had nothing but still found joy in a book, he forgot every single one. Instead, he walked up and said, "What are you reading?" She looked up, and he saw that her eyes were hazel, a striking combination of green and brown that caught the afternoon light. "Excuse me. Your book. What is it?" She glanced down at it, then back at him with obvious suspicion. "Why?" "Because I'm curious. And because you looked like you were enjoying it, which is rare. Most people look miserable when they read, like it's homework." A small smile tugged at her lips. Their eyes were watching God. Zora Neale Hurston. You know it. I know of it. Never read it. You should. She closed the book carefully, protectively. It's about a woman who refuses to let the world tell her who she should be. About finding your own voice even when everyone wants to silence it. Sounds like a good story. It's more than that. She paused, studying him with those sharp hazel eyes. "Why are you really talking to me?" Theodore's carefully constructed plan wavered. He'd expected gratitude, maybe wariness, but not this direct challenge. Can't someone just want to have a conversation? Not with homeless people, they can't. Usually they either ignore us completely or give us money so we'll go away. You're doing neither, which means you want something. She tilted her head. So what is it? Are you from some charity? Social services? Because I'm not interested in a shelter, thanks. Been down that road. He should have lied. Should have had a cover story ready. But something about her directness demanded honesty, or at least a version of it. I'm not from any charity. I saw you reading and I was curious. That's it. That's it, she repeated, clearly not believing him. Scout's honor. Were you even a scout? No. That surprised a laugh out of her, bright and genuine and completely unexpected. Well, at least you're honest about that. Okay, stranger who stops to ask homeless girls about their reading habits. I'm Jane. She didn't extend her hand, and Theodore realized why. Her fingers were stained with ink and dirt, her nails bitten down to the quick. She was embarrassed. Theodore, he said. But my friends call me Theo. We're not friends. Not yet. She raised an eyebrow. Confident, aren't you? Hopeful, he corrected, and was surprised to realize it was true. There was something about Jane, some quality he couldn't quite name, that made him want to know more. Want to understand how someone could lose everything and still find joy in a battered book. Well, Theo, who's not my friend yet, unless you're planning to make a donation, I should probably get back to my reading. This sidewalk isn't going to pay for itself. He glanced at her sign. How much do you usually make? On a good day? Maybe 40, 50 bucks. Today's been slow though. Only made 12. Theodore pulled out his wallet, and Jane's expression immediately shuttered. I don't need your pity, she said coldly. It's not pity. You said the sidewalk doesn't pay for itself. I'm paying rent for the conversation. He held out a 20. The book discussion was worth at least that. She stared at the bill like it might bite her. I don't take money for talking to people. Then consider it a loan. You can pay me back when you're a best-selling author or running a Fortune 500 company or whatever your dreams are. My dreams, she said quietly, are none of your business. But she took the 20. What would you do if a stranger approached you on the street and wanted nothing but conversation? Would you trust them, or would you be suspicious? Drop a comment below and let us know. Theodore came back the next day. And the day after that. He told himself it was commitment to the bet. That he needed to establish a pattern, build trust, create the foundation for whatever relationship Bradley and Jonathan expected him to manufacture. But the truth, the part he didn't want to examine too closely, was that he wanted to see her again. Jane was different from anyone in his world. She didn't perform. Didn't pretend. When she was happy, she smiled. When she was frustrated, she frowned. When she was tired, which seemed like most of the time, she let it show. There was no artifice, no calculation, no strategy. Just raw, unfiltered humanity. On the third day, he brought her coffee. You remembered, she said, surprised, when he handed her the cup from the cafe down the street. You said you liked it black with 2 sugars. I remember things. She wrapped her hands around the cup, savoring its warmth. October in San Francisco meant cold winds off the bay, and her layered clothes only did so much. Thank you. You didn't have to. I know. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the city flow past. Theodore had never done this before, just sat and observed. His life was meetings, decisions, actions. Stillness was foreign, unnecessary, inefficient. But here, with Jane, stillness felt like exactly the right thing. Can I ask you something? He said finally. You're going to anyway. How'd you end up here? On the street, I mean. He expected her to shut down, to tell him it was none of his business, to retreat behind walls the way he would have. Instead, she sighed and stared into her coffee. The short version? My mom died when I was 19. Cancer. I'd been working full-time to help with her medical bills, but it wasn't enough. Never enough. After she passed, I couldn't afford our apartment anymore. Fell behind on rent, got evicted. Tried to stay with friends, but that only works for so long before you become a burden. Been out here for about 9 months now. No other family. Never knew my dad. Mom's parents died before I was born. It was always just us. She smiled sadly. She used to say we were a team. Williams against the world. Guess I'm flying solo now. Theodore's chest tightened. He knew loss. Knew what it was like to have your world collapse around you and have to rebuild from rubble. But he'd had resources. Money. Options. Jane had nothing except a battered backpack and unbreakable spirit. What about you? Jane asked, turning the question around. What's your story, Theo? Who brings coffee? He'd prepared for this. Had a cover story ready. But looking at her, at the open, honest curiosity in her face, he found himself telling the truth. Built a tech company from the ground up. It went well. Really well. Now I mostly invest in other startups, help people build their dreams. So you're rich? Yes. Then why are you here? Talking to me? It was the question he'd been dreading. The one he didn't have a good answer for, because the real answer, because of a cruel bet, would destroy everything. Because everyone in my world wants something from me, he said slowly. They want money or connections or favors. They perform. They pretend. They wear masks. He met her eyes. You don't. You're just, you. And I forgot what that was like. What it was like to talk to someone who wasn't trying to get something from you. Jane was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, everyone wants something, Theo. Even me. What do you want? Right now. To finish this coffee, get through another day, and maybe find a warm place to sleep tonight. Long term. She shrugged. To not be homeless would be a good start. To have a real bed again. To stop being invisible to the world. She paused. To matter to someone. You matter to me. The words were out before he could stop them, and they hung in the air between them. Too much, too soon, too honest. Jane's expression softened. You don't even know me. I'd like to. Why? Because I think you're extraordinary. She laughed, but it wasn't cruel. Theo, I'm homeless. I haven't showered in 3 days. I own 4 shirts, 2 pairs of pants, and 1 pair of shoes with holes in them. I'm the opposite of extraordinary. You gave away half your sandwich last week to someone who needed it more than you did. Her eyes widened. How did you? I heard about it. And I thought, who does that? Who has nothing but still finds something to give? He leaned forward. That's extraordinary, Jane. That's the kind of person the world needs more of. She looked away, and he saw tears gathering in her eyes. Don't do that. Don't make me into some kind of saint. I gave away half a sandwich. Big deal. I'm not special. I think you are. Then you don't know very much. But she didn't ask him to leave. And when he came back the next day, and the day after that, she started to smile when she saw him coming. By day 7, Theodore had established a routine. He'd show up around 11, bringing coffee and whatever pastry the cafe had fresh that morning. They'd talk for an hour, sometimes 2, about everything and nothing. Books. Dreams. The absurdity of pigeons who seemed to own the city more than the people did. Jane would tell him stories about the other people on the streets. Old Maurice, who claimed to have been a jazz musician in New Orleans, or Crystal, who was barely 18 and had run away from a foster home. Theodore would listen, and slowly, without quite meaning to, he'd start to tell her things he'd never told anyone. About his mother's death. About his father's transformation from loving parent to hollow drunk. About the loneliness that came with success, how the higher he climbed, the more isolated he became. It's like building a tower, he said on day 8, as they sat sharing a bench in Union Square. He'd convinced her to leave her usual spot, promising to make up for any lost donations. Every floor you add, you can see further, but the people on the ground get smaller. Eventually, you can't see them at all. You're just alone at the top. Jane pulled her jacket tighter. She'd been coughing that morning, a deep, rattling sound that worried him. So come down. What? From your tower. Come down. Problem solved. It's not that simple. Isn't it? She turned to face him, and he saw the flush in her cheeks. Fever, not cold. Theo, you act like you're trapped up there. But you built the tower. You can walk out of it any time you want. And then what? Everything I've built, everything I've worked for, will still be there. Buildings don't disappear just because you step outside. She coughed again, wincing. The question isn't whether you can leave. It's whether you want to. He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone who'd lost everything but somehow understood more about life than he ever had. You're sick. I'm fine. Jane. I said I'm fine. But her voice lacked conviction, and when another coughing fit hit, she couldn't hide how much it hurt. Theodore made a decision. Come with me. What? There's a clinic 3 blocks from here. Free clinic. Let's get you checked out. I don't need. Jane. He caught her hand, the first time he'd touched her beyond a casual brush of fingers, and felt how hot her skin was. Please. She stared at their joined hands, then at his face, searching for something. Whatever she found must have satisfied her because she nodded. Okay. But just a quick check. I can't miss too many hours or someone else will take my spot. The clinic was crowded, fluorescent lit, and smelled like disinfectant and desperation. They waited for 2 hours before a tired-looking doctor could see her. Theodore sat in the waiting room, surrounded by crying babies and hacking coughs, and realized this was Jane's reality. This was healthcare when you had nothing. No insurance. No resources. Just hope and hours of your life spent in plastic chairs under flickering lights. When Jane finally emerged, she looked smaller somehow. Vulnerable. Bronchitis, she said quietly. Gave me antibiotics and an inhaler. Said I need to stay warm and dry and rest. She laughed bitterly. Sure. I'll just check into my 4-star hotel and order room service. Theodore didn't think. Didn't calculate. Didn't consider the bet or the implications or what Bradley and Jonathan would say. He just spoke. Stay with me. Jane froze. What? I have a guest room. Actually, I have 4 guest rooms. Stay with me. Just until you're better. A week, maybe 2. You can rest, recover, get your strength back. Theo, I can't. Why not? Because I don't know you. Because this is crazy. Because. She lowered her voice as people turned to stare. Because people don't do things like this. Not without wanting something in return. What if I don't want anything? Everyone wants something. Then maybe I want to help. Maybe I want to know that you're safe and warm and not coughing yourself to death on a street corner. Is that so terrible? She studied him for a long moment. What's the catch? No catch. Separate room. Separate bathroom. I work most days anyway, so you'd have the place mostly to yourself. When you're better, you can leave. No strings. This is insane. Probably. I could rob you. Or murder you in your sleep. Could you? Jane's lips twitched. No. But I could. I'll take my chances. She was quiet, warring with herself. He could see the pride battling with practicality, dignity fighting against desperation. Finally, she sighed. 1 week. And I'm paying you back somehow. I don't know how yet, but I will. Deal. Theodore's penthouse was everything Jane had never imagined and exactly what she'd expected. Sleek. Modern. Enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the bay, and the furniture looked like it belonged in a museum. Everything was white or gray or black, expensive and sterile and utterly devoid of personality. It's very. Jane searched for the word. Soulless. Theodore offered. I was going to say, clean, but yeah, soulless works too. He smiled, a real smile, not the polite thing he probably showed clients. My decorator called it, modern minimalism. I call it, I'm never here long enough to care. He showed her to the guest room, which was bigger than the entire apartment she'd shared with her mother. It had its own bathroom with a shower that had more settings than a spaceship, a bed that looked like a cloud, and towels so fluffy Jane was half convinced they were alive. There's clothes in the closet, Theodore said. My sister left them last time she visited. You're about the same size. Help yourself to anything. You have a sister? Victoria. Lives in New York. We don't talk much. Something sad crossed his face. Actually, we barely talk at all. Why? Because I'm very good at building walls. He gestured around. In case the penthouse didn't make that obvious. Jane set her backpack down, her entire life reduced to one battered bag, and felt suddenly, overwhelmingly aware of how she must look. How she must smell. 9 months of street living didn't wash off easily. Take your time, Theodore said gently, as if reading her mind. Shower, rest, whatever you need. I'll order some food. Any preferences? Anything that's not from a dumpster. His face did something complicated. Jane. Too soon for jokes? Maybe a little. After he left, Jane locked the bathroom door and stared at herself in the mirror. She barely recognized the person looking back. Her hair was a matted mess. Her skin was dull, marked with dirt and stress. Her eyes, once bright and full of dreams, looked tired. So tired. She turned on the shower, and when the hot water hit her skin, she started to cry. She cried for her mother. For her lost apartment. For every cold night and empty stomach and moment of invisible desperation. For the girl she'd been before the world had stripped her down to survival mode. For all the dreams she'd carefully packed away because dreaming hurt too much when reality was so harsh. But somewhere in the tears, there was also relief. Gratitude. hope, and fear. Because accepting Theodore's help meant trusting him, meant being vulnerable, meant admitting that she couldn't do this alone anymore, that Williams against the world had become just Williams, and Williams was drowning. She showered until the water ran clear, until her skin was pink and raw and finally clean. Then she wrapped herself in one of those impossibly fluffy towels and opened the closet. The clothes were beautiful, expensive, things she could never afford in a lifetime of saving. She chose the simplest outfit, jeans and a soft blue sweater, and caught her reflection again. She looked human. She looked like herself. She looked like someone who mattered. They ate Thai food on Theodore's couch, an enormous leather thing that could have seated 8 but felt intimate with just the two of them. Jane couldn't remember the last time she'd had pad Thai. Couldn't remember the last time food had been more than fuel, something to appreciate rather than just consume. "This is amazing," she said around a mouthful of noodles. "It's just takeout. It's the best thing I've eaten in months. Maybe years." Theodore watched her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Jane, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why books? Of all the things you could carry, all the things that might be more practical, why do you always have a book with you?" She set down her fork. It was a good question. An important one. "Because books are worlds," she said slowly. "When I'm reading, I'm not homeless. I'm not hungry or cold or scared. I'm in Eatonville with Janie Crawford. Or on the Mississippi River with Huck Finn. Or in the 100-acre wood with Pooh. Books are the only thing no one can take from me. The library lets me check them out for free, and for 2 weeks, I get to escape." She paused. "Does that sound crazy?" "No. It sounds like survival." "What about you? What's your escape?" "Work." "That's not an escape. That's just different stress." "Maybe. But when I'm working, I'm solving problems. Creating things. I'm too busy to think about other stuff." "What other stuff?" Theodore looked away. "How lonely it is. How empty. How I built this entire life that looks perfect from the outside but feels hollow on the inside." The admission hung between them, raw and honest. Jane reached over and touched his hand. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For being real. Everyone sees you as this successful, put-together guy. But you let me see the parts that aren't perfect. That matters." His fingers curled around hers. "You make me want to be honest. I don't know why. Maybe because I've got nothing to judge you with. No perfect life to compare yours to. I'm the least qualified person to criticize anyone. Or maybe you're the most qualified. You've lost everything but you're still here. Still fighting. Still finding joy in a battered book and a good pad Thai." He squeezed her hand. "You're stronger than anyone I know, Jane Williams." "I don't feel strong. The strongest people never do." They finished eating in comfortable silence, and Jane felt something shift inside her. Something that had been frozen for 9 months started to thaw. Not trust, exactly. Not yet. But the possibility of trust. The beginning of hope. That night, she slept in a real bed for the first time in 9 months. The sheets were soft, the mattress was perfect, and through the window, she could see the city lights stretching out like a carpet of stars. But the best part, the part that made her chest tight and her eyes sting, was knowing that someone cared if she was warm. Someone wanted her to be safe. Someone saw her. The next morning, Jane woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of someone moving in the kitchen. She padded out barefoot, still wearing the borrowed pajamas she'd found in the guest room, also Victoria's, apparently. Theo's sister had good taste, and found Theodore making breakfast. Actual breakfast. Eggs, bacon, toast. Not granola bars or day-old donuts or whatever she could scrape together. "You cook?" she asked, surprising him. He turned, spatula in hand, and something about the domestic scene, the billionaire CEO in his own kitchen, making breakfast like a normal person, made Jane's heart do something complicated. "I cook," he confirmed. "Not well, but adequately. Coffee, please. He poured her a cup, black with 2 sugars, he remembered, and she wrapped her hands around it, savoring the warmth. Did you sleep okay? He asked. Better than okay. That bed is amazing. I think I'm going to dream about it for the rest of my life. It's yours for as long as you need it. Theo. I mean it, Jane. No rush. Focus on getting better. She wanted to argue. Wanted to maintain her independence, her pride. But the truth was, she was exhausted. Bone deep, soul tired, exhausted. And the idea of not having to fight for just a little while, of being able to rest and heal and breathe. Thank you, she said instead. They ate breakfast together, and Jane noticed the little things. How Theodore read the news on his tablet while eating, occasionally sharing interesting headlines. How he'd made her eggs exactly the way she mentioned liking them days ago, scrambled, with cheese. How he seemed completely comfortable sharing his space, as if having someone else here was normal rather than an invasion of his carefully controlled world. What do you do all day? She asked. When you're working, I mean. Meetings, mostly. Video calls with startups we've invested in. Strategic planning. Putting out fires. He paused. It's not as exciting as it sounds. Sounds more exciting than watching pigeons fight over sandwich crusts. He smiled. Fair point. What about you? What did you do before? Before I was homeless. She appreciated that he didn't dance around it. I was a barista. Good one, too. Made art in the foam and everything. Customers would request me specifically. Her voice went soft. I was saving for community college. Wanted to study literature. Maybe become a teacher. She shrugged. Guess that's on hold indefinitely. Why indefinitely? Why not just delayed? Because I'm starting from zero, Theo. Less than zero. I've got no address, no references, no way to even apply for financial aid. And even if I could somehow scrape together tuition, I'd need somewhere to live, a way to eat, money for books. She shook her head. It's not practical. What if it was? What if money wasn't an issue? But it is an issue. For people like me, it's the only issue. Theodore set down his fork. People like you. What does that mean? People who fell through the cracks. People who don't have safety nets or trust funds or, she stopped, realizing what she was saying. I'm sorry. That wasn't fair. No, you're right. I did have those things. And I never questioned them. Never thought about what it would be like without them. He leaned forward. But that's why I want to help, Jane. Because I can. Because I have more than I could ever need, and you have nothing through no fault of your own. Doesn't that seem wrong to you? The whole world seems wrong to me. Doesn't mean I can fix it. Maybe not the whole world. But maybe your piece of it. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something she hadn't expected. Not pity. Not guilt. But genuine care. He actually cared what happened to her. This stranger who'd walked into her life a week ago with coffee and curiosity had somehow started to matter. And more terrifying, she'd started to matter to him. Why are you doing this? She asked quietly. Really? What do you get out of helping me? It was the opening. The perfect moment to tell her the truth. To confess about the bet, about Bradley and Jonathan, about how this whole thing had started as a cruel game. Theodore could feel the words forming, could taste the confession on his tongue. But looking at Jane, at her clear hazel eyes and cautious hope, he couldn't do it. Couldn't bear to see that hope die. Couldn't stand the thought of her knowing she'd been a bet, a game, a challenge. So instead, he told her a different truth. I get to know you. I get to help someone who deserves it. I get to feel like maybe I'm not as hollow as I thought I was. He reached across the table and took her hand. You make me want to be better, Jane. You make me remember that there's more to life than profit margins and quarterly reports. You make me feel human again. Her eyes shimmered. Theo. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know. They sat like that, hands joined across the breakfast table, while the San Francisco morning streamed through the windows and painted everything gold. And for the first time in 9 months, Jane Williams felt something she thought she'd lost forever. She felt safe. The week stretched into 2. Jane's bronchitis improved with antibiotics, proper rest, and regular meals. Color returned to her cheeks. Her cough faded. Her eyes regained their brightness. But more than her physical health improved. She started to heal in other ways. Started to remember what it felt like to be a person rather than a problem. To have conversations that weren't about survival. To laugh freely. To dream again. Theodore rearranged his schedule to work from home more. He told himself it was to make sure Jane was comfortable, to keep her company during recovery. But the truth was, he didn't want to miss a moment with her. Didn't want to be anywhere else. They fell into a routine. Morning coffee and breakfast. Theodore working in his office while Jane read or explored the penthouse. She'd found his library on day 10 and nearly cried at the floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. Lunch together. Afternoons spent talking or watching old movies. Dinners that turned into long conversations that stretched past midnight. And slowly, carefully, something grew between them. Something neither of them had planned for or expected. On day 15, Jane made him dinner. She'd insisted, said she needed to contribute somehow, and Theodore had given her access to his rarely used kitchen. She'd made spaghetti, simple, from a jar, nothing fancy, but she'd set the table with candles and everything. This is nice, Theodore said, genuinely touched. It's just pasta. It's more than that. It's you taking care of me the way I've been taking care of you. It matters. Jane fiddled with her fork. Theo, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. His stomach dropped. Okay. What is this? What are we doing here? What do you mean? I mean, this isn't normal. People don't just take in homeless strangers and give them everything they need and ask for nothing in return. So what do you want from me? What's the end game? Theodore's heart hammered. This was it. The moment of truth. He could tell her everything, about the bet, about Bradley and Jonathan, about how this started. Or he could tell her something else. Something that felt more true than anything else in his life right now. I want to keep knowing you, he said. I want you to stay. Not because you're sick or have nowhere to go, but because I like having you here. I like who I am when I'm with you. I like. He took a breath. I like you, Jane. More than I should probably admit after only 2 weeks. She stared at him. You like me? Yes. Theo, you barely know me. I know enough. I know you're kind and smart and stronger than anyone I've ever met. I know you make me laugh and make me think and make me want to be better. I know that for the first time in years, I'm excited to wake up because it means I get to see you. He reached across the table. Is that enough? Jane's hand trembled as she took his. I like you too. Which terrifies me because I can't afford to like you. I can't afford to need you. Because what happens when this ends? When reality comes back and I have to leave and go back to being nobody again. You're not nobody. Out there, I am. Out there, I'm just another homeless person people step over. But here. Her voice cracked. Here, I matter. And I don't know how to go back to not mattering once I've remembered what it feels like. Theodore stood, moving around the table to kneel beside her chair. He took both her hands in his. Then don't go back. Stay here. Stay with me. As what? Your charity project. As Jane. As the woman who makes me want to be more than just a CEO. As someone important to me. Theo, we're from different worlds. This is fantasy. It's not real life. Why not? Why can't this be real life? Why can't I choose to care about you and you choose to stay? Because, she looked away, tears sliding down her cheeks. Because I'm scared. Because the last time I let myself hope for something good, I lost everything. My mom, my home, my entire life. Hope is dangerous. So is giving up. She turned back to him, and he saw all her fear and longing and desperate desire to believe written across her face. What if you change your mind? What if you wake up one day and realize I'm not worth the trouble? What if I don't? What if I wake up every day more certain that you're the best thing that's happened to me in years? That's crazy. Maybe. But maybe crazy is exactly what I need. He brushed a tear from her cheek. Jane Williams, I don't know what this is or where it's going. But I know I want to find out. With you. If you'll let me. For a long moment, she just looked at him. Then, slowly, she leaned forward and rested her forehead against his. Okay, she whispered. Okay. And there, in Theodore Mitchell's sterile penthouse, over simple spaghetti and cheap wine, two people from impossible different worlds decided to try something terrifying and beautiful and maybe completely insane. They decided to give hope a chance. Day 20 brought a shift. Jane was fully recovered, the bronchitis gone, her strength returned. She no longer needed Theodore's help. But she wasn't ready to leave. And Theodore wasn't ready to let her go. They hadn't defined what they were to each other. Hadn't put labels on the gentle touches that had become more frequent. The lingering looks. The way they gravitated toward each other like magnets, drawn by forces they didn't fully understand. Theodore took the day off, something he never did, and surprised Jane with a plan. Where are we going? She asked as they rode the elevator down from the penthouse. You'll see. Mysterious. I like it. He drove them, in a modest SUV, not the Tesla that screamed wealth, to Ocean Beach. The fog was rolling in, gray and thick, and the beach was nearly empty. Perfect. You brought me to the beach, Jane said, smiling. In October. In San Francisco. When it's 50 degrees. I brought you to see something beautiful. Come on. They walked along the shore, shoes in hand, cold sand between their toes. The waves crashed rhythmically, and seabirds called overhead. Jane tilted her face to the spray, closing her eyes. I used to come here with my mom, she said quietly. Before she got sick. We'd pack sandwiches and spend the whole day just sitting on the sand, watching the ocean. She said it reminded her that the world was bigger than our problems. That no matter how bad things got, the waves would keep coming. Life would keep going. She sounds like a wise woman. She was. She really was. Jane opened her eyes. I miss her every day. But being here, it feels like she's close somehow. Like she's telling me it's okay to be happy again. Theodore stopped walking and turned to face her. The fog swirled around them, making the world feel small and intimate. Just the two of them and the endless ocean. Jane, I need to tell you something. Okay. I'm falling for you. I don't know how or when it happened. Maybe it was when you looked up from your book that first day. Maybe it was when you made me think about my tower. Maybe it's been happening gradually, a little more every day. But I'm falling, and I need you to know that. Jane's breath caught. Theo, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know that this, us, it's not charity. It's not pity. You're not a project to me. You're. He struggled for words. You're the first person in years who sees me. Really sees me. Not my money or my success or my mistakes. Just me. And I want you to know that I see you too. All of you. And I'm falling for all of it. The wind whipped Jane's hair around her face. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. I'm falling too. And it terrifies me because I don't have anything to offer you. No money, no connections, no impressive career. Just me. Just broken, messed up, homeless me. You're not broken. And you're not homeless anymore. He cupped her face in his hands. You're home now. With me. If you want to be. I want to be. God help me, I want to be. He kissed her then, soft and gentle and full of promise. Kissed her while the fog wrapped around them and the waves sang their ancient song. Kissed her like she was precious. Like she was home. When they pulled apart, Jane was crying and smiling at the same time. I'm so scared, she admitted. Me too. What if we're making a mistake? What if we're not? She laughed through her tears. You always do that. Answer questions with questions. Keeps things interesting. They walked back to the car hand in hand, and something fundamental had shifted. They weren't just Theodore and Jane anymore, not just CEO and homeless girl, not just two people sharing space. They were becoming something new. Something neither of them had words for yet. They were becoming us. What would you risk for love? Would you trust someone who seemed too good to be true, or would your fear hold you back? Tell us in the comments. We want to hear your thoughts. That night, back at the penthouse, they cooked dinner together. Jane chopped vegetables while Theodore handled the pasta, and they moved around each other with an ease that felt practiced, natural, right. Music played from Theodore's rarely used speakers, old jazz that made Jane smile. I could get used to this, she said. Good. Because I want you to. After dinner, they curled up on the couch to watch a movie, but neither of them paid much attention to the screen. They were too aware of each other. Of the warmth where their bodies touched. Of the way Theodore's fingers traced absent patterns on Jane's arm. Of how perfectly she fit tucked against his side. Theo. Thank you. For what? For seeing me when everyone else looked past me. For treating me like I mattered. For. She turned to look at him. For making me believe in good things again. He kissed her forehead. Thank you for teaching me what really matters. For reminding me that life is more than work and success and climbing towers. For showing me how to be human again. We're quite the pair, aren't we? The lonely billionaire and the broken homeless girl. You're not broken. Neither are you. Maybe we're just healing. Together. Jane smiled against his chest. I like the sound of that. They stayed like that, wrapped in each other, while the movie played forgotten in the background. And in that moment, Theodore realized something that made his blood run cold. He'd forgotten about the bet. Somewhere between day 7 and day 20, between coffee and conversations, between watching Jane heal and falling for her smile, he'd completely forgotten why he'd approached her in the first place. The bet that had seemed so important, so necessary to prove his superiority over his emotions, had become meaningless. Bradley and Jonathan would want proof soon. They'd want to know if he'd succeeded in making Jane fall for him, if he'd proven he could stay detached, if he'd won their cruel game. But there was no game anymore. There was only Jane. And Theodore Mitchell, billionaire CEO who'd built his empire on calculated risks and cold decisions, realized he'd done the one thing he'd sworn never to do. He'd fallen in love. Completely. Irrevocably. Terrifyingly in love. With 3 days left until the bet's deadline, Theodore had a choice to make. Tell her the truth and risk losing her forever. Or keep the secret and live with the lie. Neither option seemed survivable. But watching Jane sleep against his chest, her face peaceful and trusting and beautiful, Theodore knew one thing with absolute certainty. He would do anything to protect her. Even from himself. Even from his own terrible mistakes. The bet had been about proving he couldn't fall in love. About demonstrating that emotions were weaknesses and attachment was fatal. But he'd proven the opposite. He'd proven that love was the only thing worth risking everything for. That Jane Williams, with her worn books and unbreakable spirit, was worth more than all his billions. Now he just had to figure out how to keep her. Before the truth destroyed them both. Day 21 dawned gray and cold. Theodore woke with Jane still asleep beside him on the couch, where they drifted off watching the movie. He carefully extracted himself, not wanting to wake her, and went to his office to face what he'd been avoiding. His phone had 17 missed calls. 12 from Bradley. 5 from Jonathan. He knew what they wanted. The bet's 30-day deadline was in 9 days, and they'd want updates. Proof. Evidence that he was succeeding in their cruel experiment. Theodore stared at his phone like it was a live grenade. He could ignore them. Block their numbers. Pretend the bet had never happened. But men like Bradley and Jonathan didn't just disappear. They'd show up. They'd find Jane. They'd tell her everything, probably relishing the devastation it would cause. He had to handle this. Had to end it. But how? His phone buzzed. A text from Bradley. "We need to talk. Today. Non-negotiable." Theodore's jaw clenched. He typed back, "Fine. My office. Noon. Come alone." The response was immediate. "Both of us are coming. This should be interesting." Jane woke to find Theodore gone and coffee waiting for her on the kitchen counter, along with a note. "Had to go into the office for a few hours. Make yourself at home. Back for dinner." She smiled at the note, tracing her fingers over his handwriting. Then reality crept in, the way it always did in quiet moments. This wasn't real life. This was a fairy tale, and fairy tales didn't happen to girls like her. Eventually, Theodore would realize she was just a burden. Eventually, the novelty would wear off and he'd want his life back. His real life, with people from his world. Jane knew she should protect herself. Should build walls. Should prepare for the inevitable ending. But God help her, she didn't want to. She wanted to believe in this. Wanted to believe that love could bridge the impossible gap between their worlds. Wanted to believe she deserved happiness. She wandered through the penthouse, still not quite comfortable with the opulence. Everything was so clean, so perfect, so expensive. She was terrified of breaking something or leaving marks or somehow ruining this pristine space. In Theodore's bedroom, which she'd only seen briefly, she found photos on his dresser. A younger Theodore with a beautiful woman who had his eyes. Victoria, probably. Another photo of a couple, his parents, she guessed. The woman had a warm smile. The man looked stern, even in this happy moment. And one more photo, tucked in the back. Theodore, maybe 22 or 23, with his arm around a stunning blonde woman in a designer dress. They were at some formal event, champagne glasses raised, both smiling for the camera. But their smiles didn't reach their eyes. Jane stared at the photo, feeling something cold settle in her stomach. This was Theodore's world. Formal events and designer dresses and women who fit perfectly into his life. Women who knew which fork to use and how to make small talk with other billionaires and never had to worry about where their next meal was coming from. What was she doing here? She set the photo down and backed out of the room, feeling like an intruder. Because that's what she was, wasn't she? An intruder in a life that wasn't meant for her. Theodore's office at Mitchell Industries was all glass and steel, a testament to success and power. Bradley and Jonathan were already there when he arrived, making themselves comfortable in his space like they owned it. "Gentlemen," Theodore said coldly, not bothering with pleasantries. "Theo." Bradley stood, grinning. "Been a while. You've been avoiding us." "I've been busy." "Oh, we know. With your little project." Jonathan swirled his drink, Theodore's scotch, uninvited. "So, how's it going?" Theodore closed the door and faced them. "It's over. The bet is off." Silence. Then Bradley laughed. "What do you mean, it's off?" "I mean exactly what I said. I'm not doing this anymore. The bet is done. Forget it ever happened." Jonathan's eyes narrowed. "That's not how this works, Mitch. You agreed to the terms. 30 days, make her fall in love, walk away. You don't get to just quit. Watch me." "Did you fail?" Bradley's grin widened. "Oh my God, you did." The great Theodore Mitchell actually couldn't manipulate a homeless girl into falling for him. That's priceless. Theodore's hands clenched into fists. Don't talk about her like that. Touchy. Very touchy. Jonathan stood, circling Theodore like a shark. Wait. Did you actually fall for her? Is that what this is about? The silence was answer enough. Bradley burst out laughing. Holy shit. You did. You actually fell for the homeless girl. This is better than I could have imagined. Get out. Not yet. See, we had a bet, Theo. And bets have consequences. You agreed to make her fall in love and walk away. If you can't do that, you lose. And if you lose, you owe us each 50 grand. Fine. I'll write you a check right now. Just stay away from Jane. Jane. You even learned her name. How sweet. Jonathan's voice dripped with mock sympathy. But money's not interesting anymore. We want something better. Theodore's blood ran cold. What? We want to tell her. About the bet. About how this whole thing started because you wanted to prove you couldn't be touched by something as common as emotion. Bradley leaned forward. We want to watch her face when she realizes you've been playing her this whole time. No. Then win the bet. Walk away from her. Prove you can do it. I'm not walking away from her. Then she finds out the truth. Jonathan shrugged. Your choice, really. Either way, we get entertainment. Either you break her heart by leaving, or we break it by telling her what you are. Theodore felt rage building in his chest, hot and dangerous. You're both pathetic. You know that. This whole thing, this bet, this need to prove something. It's because you're both so empty inside that you need to destroy something beautiful just to feel alive. Big words from a guy who took the bet in the first place. Bradley shot back. Don't act like you're better than us, Theo. You started this. You agreed to play with a human being's emotions for money and ego. So don't stand there on your moral high ground and pretend you're the hero. The words hit like physical blows because they were true. Theodore had taken the bet. Had approached Jane with ulterior motives. Had built a relationship on a foundation of lies. I made a mistake, Theodore said quietly. A terrible mistake. But I'm trying to fix it. By lying to her? By letting her think this is real when it started as a game. Jonathan shook his head. That's not fixing it, Mitch. That's compounding it. What do you want from me? 7 days. You've got 7 days left in the bet. Either walk away from her at the end, or tell her the truth yourself. If you do neither, we will. Bradley's smile was cruel. And trust me, we'll make sure she knows every detail. How we picked her because she seemed pathetic enough to fall for it. How you hesitated before agreeing because even you thought it was too cruel. How the whole thing was about proving Theodore Mitchell couldn't be touched by something as weak as love. Theodore wanted to hit him. Wanted to throw both of them through the glass windows and watch them fall. But violence wouldn't solve this. Nothing would solve this except the truth. And the truth would destroy Jane. Get out of my office, Theodore said, his voice deadly quiet. 7 days, Theo. Make your choice. Jonathan set down the scotch glass. And by the way, she's too good for you. She was always too good for you. At least we knew we were monsters. You actually made her believe you weren't. They left, and Theodore collapsed into his chair, his head in his hands. They were right. Jane was too good for him. And he'd destroyed any chance they had the moment he'd taken that bet. He had 7 days to figure out how to tell the woman he loved that their entire relationship was built on a lie. 7 days to break both their hearts. Theodore came home late, his face drawn and tired. Jane had made dinner, something simple from the limited ingredients she knew how to work with, and set the table. Hey, she said softly when he walked in. Rough day. You could say that. He tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Want to talk about it? Not really. But thank you for making dinner. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. It's the least I can do after everything you've done for me. They ate in near silence, and Jane felt the distance between them like a physical thing. Something had changed. Something had shifted in the few hours he'd been gone. Theo, what's wrong? She asked finally. Nothing. Just work stress. Don't lie to me, please. I can see something's bothering you. He set down his fork and looked at her. Really looked at her. And Jane saw something in his eyes that terrified her. Guilt. Deep, soul-crushing guilt. Jane, He stopped, the words dying in his throat. I need to tell you something. Her heart hammered. Okay. Not tonight. I need to figure out how to say it. But soon. I promise. You're scaring me. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He reached across the table and took her hand. Just know that whatever happens, whatever I tell you, what I feel for you is real. That's the one thing that's completely, absolutely real. Theo, what are you talking about? I can't, not yet. I need more time. Jane pulled her hand back, fear coiling in her stomach. Did you change your mind? About us? About me being here? No. God, no. Jane, that's not. He stood, running his hands through his hair. This is coming out all wrong. I'm not changing my mind about you. About us. There's something you need to know about how this started. About why I approached you that first day. The world tilted. What do you mean, why you approached me? I can't explain it right now. Not like this. But I will. I promise I will. Just give me a couple days to figure out how to tell you without, he stopped. Without what? Breaking my heart. Jane's voice was sharp now, defensive. Were you sent by someone? Is this some kind of social experiment? What? No. Nothing like that. It's complicated. Then uncomplicate it. Right now. Theodore looked at her, and she saw him warring with himself. Saw him trying to decide between truth and protection. Between honesty and mercy. Finally, he said, I will tell you everything. Every single thing. But I need to do it right. Please, Jane. Trust me for just a little longer. Trust. He was asking her to trust him when he'd just admitted there was something wrong about how they'd started. When he'd just revealed there were lies between them. But looking at his face, at the genuine anguish there, Jane found herself nodding. 2 days, she said. You have 2 days to tell me whatever this is. After that, I'm gone. Because I can't stay here wondering what secret you're keeping. I can't build a life on half-truths. 2 days. I promise. But as Jane lay in bed that night, unable to sleep, she wondered if 2 days would be enough time for Theodore to find the courage to destroy everything they'd built. And she wondered if she'd survive the truth when it finally came. Day 22. 5 days left in the bet. Theodore barely slept. He called his lawyer at 7 a.m. I need to set up a trust. Substantial. For Jane Williams. The homeless woman you've been helping? News traveled fast in his circles. Yes. I want her taken care of. Full funding for education, housing, living expenses. Everything she needs to rebuild her life. Set it up so it can't be contested or taken away. How much are we talking? 5 million to start. More if needed. His lawyer whistled. That's generous. It's not generous. It's restitution. For what I'm about to do to her, Theodore thought but didn't say. He spent the day putting his affairs in order, preparing for the fallout. He transferred money, signed documents, made arrangements. By evening, Jane had a trust fund she didn't know about and financial security for life. It wouldn't make up for the betrayal. Wouldn't heal the wounds he was about to inflict. But at least she'd never be homeless again. At least she'd never have to choose between pride and survival. At least he could give her that. When he got home, Jane was in the library, curled up in the leather chair by the window with a book. She looked up when he entered, and her expression was guarded. "One day down," she said. "One to go." "I know. Are you going to tell me?" "Tomorrow." "Yes." "Will I hate you?" Theodore's heart broke. "Probably." "Will it hurt?" "Yes." Jane closed her book. "Then why tell me? Why not just let me keep believing whatever this is?" "Because you deserve the truth. And because I won't build our future on a lie." "What if there is no future after you tell me? Then at least you'll know what kind of man I really am. And you can make an informed choice about whether someone like me deserves someone like you." She stood, crossing to him. "I already know what kind of man you are, Theo. You're the kind who sees people, who helps without expecting anything in return, who makes me feel safe and valued and loved. That's who you are. That's who I want to be. That's who I am with you. But before you, I was someone else. Someone who made terrible choices. And you need to know about those choices." Jane searched his face. "Whatever it is, we can work through it. Together." "I hope so. God, I hope so." She kissed him then, soft and sweet and full of trust he didn't deserve. And Theodore held her tight, memorizing the feel of her in his arms, knowing that tomorrow might be the last time she let him hold her. Day 23. 4 days left. Tomorrow, he'd promised to tell her everything. Theodore woke before dawn, Jane sleeping peacefully beside him. She'd fallen asleep in his bed last night, both of them needing the closeness, the reassurance of touch. He'd watched her sleep for hours, trying to memorize every detail. The curve of her cheek. The way her lashes fanned against her skin. The small smile that played at her lips even in sleep. He loved her. Completely. Impossibly. Terrifyingly. And tomorrow, he'd lose her. His phone buzzed. A text from Jonathan. "Clock's ticking, Mitch. 4 days until Judgment Day. Have you figured out how to break her yet? Or will we have to do it for you?" Theodore deleted the message, but the damage was done. The reminder was there. 4 days until the bet's deadline. 4 days until Bradley and Jonathan would demand their entertainment, one way or another. He had to tell Jane today. Couldn't wait until tomorrow. Couldn't let another moment pass with this lie between them. But looking at her, peaceful in sleep, he couldn't bring himself to do it. Not yet. Just a few more hours of her trust. Just a little more time in this fragile happiness before he shattered it. Coward, he thought. You're a coward. But he let her sleep, and when she woke, he made her breakfast and pretended everything was fine. "Let's go out today," Theodore said over coffee. "Really go out. Do something fun." Jane raised an eyebrow. "This feels like a last meal kind of offer. Are you buttering me up before the big revelation?" "Maybe. Or maybe I just want to spend a good day with you before." He trailed off. "Before everything changes." "Yeah." Jane considered this. "Okay. One good day. Where are we going?" "Golden Gate Park. Botanical Gardens. Lunch somewhere nice but not fancy. Whatever you want. I want the Japanese tea garden. I used to go there with my mom." "Then that's where we'll go." They spent the day wandering through the gardens, holding hands like any normal couple. They admired bonsai trees and crossed small wooden bridges and drank tea in the traditional tea house. Jane told him stories about her mother, about visits here when she was young, about dreams she'd once had of traveling to Japan someday. "I'll take you," Theodore said. "Wherever you want to go. Tokyo, Kyoto, anywhere. We'll go together." "You're assuming I'll still want to go anywhere with you after tomorrow." "I'm hoping. Desperately hoping." They had lunch at a small cafe, nothing fancy, and it was perfect. Simple sandwiches and good coffee and easy conversation. For a few hours, they were just Theodore and Jane, not billionaire and formerly homeless girl, Not two people from impossible worlds. Just two people in love. As the sun started to set, they walked through the park's meadows, the grass golden in the fading light. "This was a good day," Jane said softly. "It was. Thank you. For all of it. For everything you've given me. No matter what you tell me tomorrow, I want you to know that these past 3 weeks have been the happiest of my life. You gave me hope again. You made me feel human. That matters." Theodore stopped walking and turned to face her. "Jane, I know what you're going to say tomorrow," she interrupted. "Or at least, I think I do." His heart stopped. "You do. You're married, aren't you? Or engaged. Someone from your world. Someone appropriate. And you met me and felt something and got confused, but now you're remembering your real life and you need to end this." Theodore almost laughed with relief. If only it were that simple. "I'm not married. Not engaged. There's no one else. There's only you." "Then what? What could possibly be so bad that you're this afraid to tell me?" He looked at her brave, beautiful face, and almost told her everything right there. Almost confessed about the bet, and the cruelty, and his terrible mistake. But cowardice won. "Tomorrow. I promise. Tomorrow I'll tell you everything." Jane nodded slowly. "Okay. Tomorrow." They walked back to the car in silence, and Theodore knew he'd run out of time. Out of excuses. Out of ways to delay the inevitable. Tomorrow, Jane would learn the truth. Tomorrow, he'd lose her. Tomorrow, Theodore Mitchell would finally pay for his sins. That night, Jane couldn't sleep. Something was wrong. More wrong than Theodore was admitting. She could feel it in her bones. She got up, needing water, needing air, needing something. Theodore's office door was ajar, light spilling out. He was still awake. She should have gone back to bed. Should have respected his privacy. But fear drove her forward, and she pushed the door open quietly. Theodore sat at his desk, his head in his hands, and he was crying. Actually crying. She'd never seen him cry. "Theo," she said softly. He looked up, and the devastation on his face made her blood run cold. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "God, Jane, I'm so sorry." "For what? What's wrong?" He gestured to his computer screen. "I was looking at the trust documents. Making sure everything was in order. Making sure you'd be taken care of." "What trust documents?" "The ones I set up for you. $5 million. For education, housing, whatever you need. It's yours. Irrevocable." Jane felt like she'd been slapped. You set up a trust for me? $5 million. I needed to make sure you'd be okay. After what? After I tell you the truth and you leave. After you realize what kind of person I really am." Jane's legs felt weak. She moved to the chair across from his desk, sitting carefully. "Tell me now. Whatever it is, tell me right now. Jane. Now, Theodore. No more delays. No more promises of tomorrow. Right now." He looked at her for a long moment, and she saw him make the decision. Saw him accept what was coming. "It started as a bet," he said quietly. The words hung in the air like poison. "What? 3 weeks ago. My friends, Bradley and Jonathan, they made me a bet. They said I was too cold, too detached, incapable of real emotion. They bet me that I couldn't make someone fall in love with me and walk away unaffected. They chose you. A homeless woman who they thought would be easy to manipulate." His voice was hollow. "And I agreed." Jane felt the world tilt. You approached me because of a bet?" "Yes. You offered me coffee and conversation and a place to stay because someone dared you to?" "Yes. This whole thing, all of it, was a game to you?" "At first, yes. At first, it was a game. A stupid, cruel, unforgivable game. But Jane, somewhere along the way, it stopped being a game. It became real. You became real. What I feel for you is real. Jane stood, her body shaking. Real? You want to talk to me about real? Real is being so desperate that you accept help from a stranger. Real is letting yourself hope again because someone seems to see you as human. Real is falling in love with someone who you think genuinely cares about you. Her voice broke. Real is having your heart shattered when you find out it was all a lie. It's not a lie. Not anymore. Jane, I love you. Don't. The word came out sharp as a blade. Don't you dare say that to me. You don't get to say that. But it's true. I fell in love with you. That wasn't part of the bet. That wasn't supposed to happen. And what was supposed to happen? You date me for 30 days, make me fall in love, then disappear? Was that the plan? His silence was answer enough. Jane laughed, but it was a broken sound. Oh my God. That was the plan. You were supposed to break my heart on purpose. To prove what? That you're superior? That you can play with people's emotions and come out clean? I was supposed to prove I couldn't fall in love. That I was untouchable. But I was wrong. So wrong. You're right about one thing. You were wrong. Jane backed toward the door. About everything. About me, about us, about what kind of person you are. Jane, please. Is that why you set up the trust? To ease your guilt? To pay off the homeless girl you manipulated? No. I set it up because I love you. Because I want you to be okay even if you can't be with me. Because you deserve security and opportunity and I deserve the truth. I deserved it from day one. Tears streamed down her face. Did you laugh about me? You and your friends. Did you sit around making jokes about the pathetic homeless girl who was so desperate for connection that she fell for your act? It was never an act. Not after the first few days. Jane, you have to believe me. I don't have to believe anything you say ever again. She grabbed her backpack from the closet. Always packed, always ready, survival instinct never quite gone. That's the thing about building a relationship on lies, Theo. Once the foundation cracks, the whole thing crumbles. Where are you going? It's the middle of the night. Anywhere that's not here. Anywhere that doesn't have you in it. Theodore stood, moving toward her, but she held up a hand. Don't touch me. Don't follow me. Just let me go. Gain. You can go to college, build a life, have everything you ever wanted. That night, Jane couldn't sleep. Something was wrong. More wrong than Theodore was admitting. She could feel it in her bones. She got up, needing water, needing air, needing something. Theodore's office door was ajar, light spilling out. He was still awake. She should have gone back to bed. Should have respected his privacy. But fear drove her forward, and she pushed the door open quietly. Theodore sat at his desk, his head in his hands, and he was crying. Actually crying. She'd never seen him cry. Theo, she said softly. He looked up, and the devastation on his face made her blood run cold. I'm sorry, he said, his voice breaking. God, Jane, I'm so sorry. For what? What's wrong? He gestured to his computer screen. I was looking at the trust documents. Making sure everything was in order. Making sure you'd be taken care of. What trust documents? The ones I set up for you. $5 million. For education, housing, whatever you need. It's yours. Irrevocable. Jane felt like she'd been slapped. You set up a trust for me? $5 million. I needed to make sure you'd be okay. After what? After I tell you the truth and you leave. After you realize what kind of person I really am. Jane's legs felt weak. She moved to the chair across from his desk, sitting carefully. Tell me now. Whatever it is, tell me right now. Jane. Now, Theodore. No more delays. No more promises of tomorrow. Right now. He looked at her for a long moment, and she saw him make the decision. Saw him accept what was coming. It started as a bet, he said quietly. The words hung in the air like poison. What? 3 weeks ago. My friends, Bradley and Jonathan, they made me a bet. They said I was too cold, too detached, incapable of real emotion. They bet me that I couldn't make someone fall in love with me and walk away unaffected. They chose you. A homeless woman who they thought would be easy to manipulate. His voice was hollow. And I agreed. Jane felt the world tilt. You approached me because of a bet? Yes. You offered me coffee and conversation and a place to stay because someone dared you to? Yes. This whole thing, all of it, was a game to you? At first, yes. At first, it was a game. A stupid, cruel, unforgivable game. But Jane, somewhere along the way, it stopped being a game. It became real. You became real. What I feel for you is real. Jane stood, her body shaking. Real? You want to talk to me about real? Real is being so desperate that you accept help from a stranger. Real is letting yourself hope again because someone seems to see you as human. Real is falling in love with someone who you think genuinely cares about you. Her voice broke. Real is having your heart shattered when you find out it was all a lie. It's not a lie. Not anymore. Jane, I love you. Don't. The word came out sharp as a blade. Don't you dare say that to me. You don't get to say that. But it's true. I fell in love with you. That wasn't part of the bet. That wasn't supposed to happen. And what was supposed to happen? You date me for 30 days, make me fall in love, then disappear? Was that the plan? His silence was answer enough. Jane laughed, but it was a broken sound. Oh my God. That was the plan. You were supposed to break my heart on purpose. To prove what? That you're superior? That you can play with people's emotions and come out clean. I was supposed to prove I couldn't fall in love. That I was untouchable. But I was wrong. So wrong. You're right about one thing. You were wrong. Jane backed toward the door. About everything. About me, about us, about what kind of person you are. Jane, please. Is that why you set up the trust? To ease your guilt? To pay off the homeless girl you manipulated? No. I set it up because I love you. Because I want you to be okay even if you can't be with me. Because you deserve security and opportunity and I deserve the truth. I deserved it from day one. Tears streamed down her face. Did you laugh about me? You and your friends. Did you sit around making jokes about the pathetic homeless girl who was so desperate for connection that she fell for your act? It was never an act. Not after the first few days. Jane, you have to believe me. I don't have to believe anything you say ever again. She grabbed her backpack from the closet. Always packed, always ready, survival instinct never quite gone. That's the thing about building a relationship on lies, Theo. Once the foundation cracks, the whole thing crumbles. Where are you going? It's the middle of the night. Anywhere that's not here. Anywhere that doesn't have you in it. Theodore stood, moving toward her, but she held up a hand. Don't touch me. Don't follow me. Just let me go. I can't. Jane, please, we can work through this. There's nothing to work through. You made me a bet. I was a game to you. And yeah, maybe you caught feelings along the way, but that doesn't change how this started. That doesn't change that every moment we shared was built on a lie. She headed for the door, and Theodore followed, desperate. The trust is real. The money is real. You never have to be homeless again. You can go to college, build a life, have everything you ever wanted. Jane whirled on him. I wanted you. I wanted this. I wanted to believe that someone could love me not despite who I am but because of it. And you took that from me. You took the one good thing I'd found and poisoned it with your lies. It doesn't have to be poisoned. We can start over. Fresh. No lies this time. There is no starting over from this. You don't get to erase what you did. She opened the door, and the hallway stretched before her. Escape, freedom, away from the man who'd built her up just to prove he could tear her down. Jane, Theodore said, and his voice was so broken that she almost turned around. I love you. I know you don't believe me, and I know I don't deserve for you to believe me, but I love you. More than I've ever loved anything. More than my company or my success or my pride. You taught me how to be human again. How to feel. How to care about something more than winning. And I'm so sorry that I let my ego destroy the best thing that ever happened to me. Jane stood in the doorway, her back to him, tears pouring down her face. Goodbye, Theodore. Please don't go. Please. I'll do anything. You can't undo the bet. You can't take back the lies. You can't give me those 3 weeks of genuine trust and hope because they never existed. She finally turned to look at him one last time. We never existed. It was all just a game. And I was the fool who forgot that people like me don't get happy endings with people like you. That's not true. But she was already walking away, down the hall, into the elevator, out of his building and out of his life. Theodore stood in the doorway of his empty penthouse, listening to the silence, and felt his carefully constructed world collapse around him. He'd won the bet. He'd proven he could make someone fall in love with him. He'd also proven that he was exactly the kind of person his friends thought he was. Someone who would sacrifice another person's heart on the altar of his own ego. And in proving that, he'd lost the only thing that had ever truly mattered. He'd lost Jane. Jane walked for hours through San Francisco's night streets, her backpack on her shoulders, tears drying on her cheeks. She'd been here before, homeless, alone, with nowhere to go. But this time was worse. This time, she knew what she was missing. Knew what it felt like to be warm and safe and loved, even if that love had been built on lies. She ended up at Ocean Beach, where they'd stood in the fog just days ago. Where Theodore had told her he was falling for her. Where she'd believed him. God, she'd been such a fool. She sat on the cold sand and watched the waves crash in the darkness. The ocean didn't care about her broken heart. Didn't care that she'd trusted wrong. It just kept moving, relentless and eternal, the way her mother had said it would. Life keeps going, her mother had told her. No matter how bad it hurts, the waves keep coming. You keep going. But Jane didn't know how to keep going from this. Didn't know how to rebuild after having hope and losing it. It had been easier when she'd never had hope at all. Her phone buzzed. Theodore had bought her a phone 2 weeks ago, insisting she needed one for safety. Another gift she'd accepted, another piece of the lie. 53 missed calls. 47 text messages. All from Theodore. She almost threw the phone into the ocean. But instead, against her better judgment, she read the messages. Please come back. We can talk. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. At least let me know you're safe. I love you. That was never a lie. Jane, please. Just tell me where you are. I'll give you space. I'll do whatever you need. Just please be okay. The trust is yours regardless. No strings. You never have to see me again, but please use it. Please don't go back to the streets. I know I have no right to ask anything of you. But I'm asking anyway. Come back. Let me try to fix this. I can't fix this, can I? I destroyed everything. God, Jane, I'm so sorry. The messages went on. Desperate. Broken. Real. But real didn't matter anymore. Real was contaminated by the lie that had started everything. Jane turned off her phone and pulled her jacket tighter against the cold. She had choices to make. She could use Theodore's trust fund. $5 million would change her life completely. She'd never have to worry about money or housing or anything again. She could go to college, build a career, create the life she'd always dreamed of. But taking his money felt like accepting payment for being his entertainment. Like putting a price on her broken heart. Or she could refuse it. Walk away with nothing, just like before. Prove that she had dignity, that she couldn't be bought. But that would mean going back to the streets. Back to hunger and cold and constant fear. Back to being invisible. "What do I do, Mama?" she whispered to the ocean, to the ghost of her mother, to anyone who might be listening. "What do I do?" The waves crashed, offering no answers. Just their endless rhythm. Just proof that life kept going, even when you didn't know how. Theodore sat in his dark penthouse, staring at his phone, willing Jane to respond. She'd read some of his messages, he could see the read receipts, but she hadn't replied. At least she was alive. At least she was okay. That had to be enough. His doorbell rang at 3 a.m. For one wild, hopeful moment, he thought it was Jane. But when he opened the door, Bradley and Jonathan stood there, drinks in hand, looking pleased with themselves. "Heard the news," Bradley said, pushing past him into the apartment. "Word on the street is the girl ran off. So which was it? Did you walk away like a winner, or did she find out and leave you like a loser?" Theodore's hands clenched into fists. "Get out. Not until we collect. That was the deal. 30 days, make her fall in love, walk away clean or tell her the truth. Either way, we win." Jonathan settled onto Theodore's couch like he owned it. "So which ending did we get?" "I told her. She left. You win. Now get the hell out of my home." "Did she cry?" Bradley asked with grotesque interest. "I bet she cried. They always cry." Something inside Theodore snapped. He grabbed Bradley by his expensive collar and slammed him against the wall. "You talk about her again, you even think about her, and I will destroy you. Both of you. I will use every resource, every connection, every dollar I have to ruin your lives. Do you understand me?" Bradley's eyes widened with genuine fear. "Jesus, Theo, calm down." "I'm not calming down. You made me into a monster. You bet me that I couldn't feel, and when I proved you wrong, when I fell in love with her, you made sure I'd lose her. You wanted to watch something beautiful burn, and you succeeded. Congratulations." He released Bradley, who stumbled backward, straightening his collar. "You took the bet," Jonathan said quietly. "Don't act like we forced you. You agreed to it. You thought you could play with a human being's emotions and come out clean. We just provided the opportunity. You made the choice." Theodore turned on him. "You're right. I made the choice. I did this. And I will live with that guilt for the rest of my life. But you, both of you, you're the kind of people who create suffering for entertainment. And I'm done with you. I'm done with this whole toxic world where people are games and emotions are weaknesses." "So what? You're going to become a saint now? Going to dedicate your life to helping the poor?" Bradley laughed. "You're still the same person, Theo. One homeless girl doesn't change who you are at your core." "You're wrong. She changed everything. She showed me what really matters. What it means to have courage and hope and strength. And I threw it away because I was too proud and too stupid to see what I had until it was gone." How poetic. Save the speech. "Where's our money?" Theodore walked to his desk, wrote 2 checks for $50,000 each, and threw them at his former friends. "There. Take your blood money and get out. And if I ever see either of you again, I'm calling the police and filing a restraining order." Bradley picked up his check, grinning. Worth every penny just to see Theodore Mitchell brought low by a girl with nothing. "This is the best entertainment I've had in years." After they left, Theodore collapsed onto his couch, and let himself break. Really break. He cried for Jane. For what he'd done to her. For the trust he'd shattered and the love he'd poisoned. He cried for the man he'd been when he took that bet, cold and hollow and convinced that emotions were weakness. Jane had been right. He'd built a tower and isolated himself at the top. And when someone finally showed him the way down, he'd destroyed the only bridge that could have saved him. Morning came. Day 24. 6 days left on the bet's original timeline, but the bet was over. Everything was over. Theodore went to his office, but he couldn't focus. Couldn't care about meetings or investments or any of it. His assistant knocked hesitantly. "Mr. Mitchell? Your sister is here." Victoria swept in, all New York elegance and sharp concern. She took one look at Theodore, and her expression softened. "Oh, Teddy. What happened?" He told her everything. The bet. Jane. The lies. The love. The loss. Victoria listened without interrupting, and when he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "You're an idiot," she said finally. "I know. But you're a fixable idiot. If you actually want to fix this." "How?" "She won't talk to me. She won't come back. And she shouldn't. I don't deserve her forgiveness." Victoria sat across from him. "You're right. You don't deserve it. But maybe this isn't about what you deserve. Maybe it's about what she needs." "What does that mean?" "It means stop thinking about yourself. Stop thinking about your guilt and your pain and your regret. Start thinking about Jane. What does she need right now?" Theodore shook his head. "I don't know. Space. Time. To never see me again. She needs to know the truth wasn't all lies. That what you felt for her was real, even if how it started was wrong. She needs to know she wasn't a fool for trusting you, that there was something genuine worth trusting." Victoria leaned forward. "And most importantly, she needs to know that you understand what you did wrong and why it was wrong. Not just, 'I'm sorry I hurt you.' But, 'I understand exactly how I hurt you and I will never do anything like that again.' How do I show her that? She won't see me. Then you find another way. You prove it with actions, not words. You show her that you've learned from this. That you've changed. That losing her changed you." "How?" Victoria smiled sadly. "I can't tell you that, little brother. You have to figure that out yourself. But I will say this, if you love her the way you say you do, you'll find a way. Even if that way is letting her go." After Victoria left, Theodore sat at his desk and thought about what she'd said. About what Jane needed versus what he wanted. About redemption and change and proving that love could be more than words. An idea began to form. It was risky. It might not work. Jane might reject it entirely. But he had to try. Had to show her that she'd changed him. That what they had, even built on a foundation of lies, had been real enough to transform him completely. He picked up his phone and started making calls. Jane spent day 24 in a shelter. She'd swallowed her pride and accepted a bed, understanding that survival mattered more than dignity. The shelter was crowded and loud and smelled like desperation, but it was warm and safe. She sat on her assigned cot and stared at her phone. Theodore's messages had stopped after the first 50. Now there was just silence. Good, she told herself. That's what you wanted. But the silence hurt more than she expected. The absence of his calls and texts felt like abandonment, even though she'd been the one to leave. A woman in the cot next to her, older, weathered by street life, noticed her staring at her phone. "Boy trouble?" she asked. Jane almost laughed. "You could say that. He do you wrong?" "Yeah." "He's sorry. Says he is." The woman nodded wisely. "Question is, do you believe him? And if you do, can you forgive him?" "I don't know. He lied to me. About everything. About why he approached me in the first place." "Why'd he approach you?" Jane hesitated, then figured what the hell. Because of a bet. His friends bet him he couldn't make a homeless girl fall in love with him. So he picked me. The woman whistled. That's cold. Yeah. Did he make you fall in love? Yes. Did he fall in love back? Jane thought about Theodore's face when he'd confessed. The devastation. The genuine anguish. I think so. I think he really did. Then maybe the bet don't matter anymore. How can it not matter? It's how everything started. It poisons everything that came after. The woman shrugged. Baby girl, I've been on these streets for 15 years. I've seen a lot of people and a lot of stories. And here's what I learned. How you start don't determine how you finish. People change. They make mistakes and they grow. The question isn't whether he was wrong at the beginning. Question is whether he's different at the end. What if he's not? What if he hasn't changed? I'm not calming down. You made me into a monster. You bet me that I couldn't feel, and when I proved you wrong, when I fell in love with her, you made sure I'd lose her. You wanted to watch something beautiful burn, and you succeeded. Congratulations. He released Bradley, who stumbled backward, straightening his collar. You took the bet, Jonathan said quietly. Don't act like we forced you. You agreed to it. You thought you could play with a human being's emotions and come out clean. We just provided the opportunity. You made the choice. Theodore turned on him. You're right. I made the choice. I did this. And I will live with that guilt for the rest of my life. But you, both of you, you're the kind of people who create suffering for entertainment. And I'm done with you. I'm done with this whole toxic world where people are games and emotions are weaknesses. So what? You're going to become a saint now? Going to dedicate your life to helping the poor? Bradley laughed. You're still the same person, Theo. One homeless girl doesn't change who you are at your core. You're wrong. She changed everything. She showed me what really matters. What it means to have courage and hope and strength. And I threw it away because I was too proud and too stupid to see what I had until it was gone. How poetic. Save the speech. Where's our money? Theodore walked to his desk, wrote 2 checks for $50,000 each, and threw them at his former friends. There. Take your blood money and get out. And if I ever see either of you again, I'm calling the police and filing a restraining order. Bradley picked up his check, grinning. Worth every penny just to see Theodore Mitchell brought low by a girl with nothing. This is the best entertainment I've had in years. After they left, Theodore collapsed onto his couch and let himself break. Really break. He cried for Jane. For what he'd done to her. For the trust he'd shattered and the love he'd poisoned. He cried for the man he'd been when he took that bet, cold and hollow and convinced that emotions were weakness. Jane had been right. He'd built a tower and isolated himself at the top. And when someone finally showed him the way down, he'd destroyed the only bridge that could have saved him. Morning came. Day 24. 6 days left on the bet's original timeline, but the bet was over. Everything was over. Theodore went to his office, but he couldn't focus. Couldn't care about meetings or investments or any of it. His assistant knocked hesitantly. Mr. Mitchell? Your sister is here. Victoria swept in, all New York elegance and sharp concern. She took one look at Theodore, and her expression softened. Oh, Teddy. What happened? He told her everything. The bet. Jane. The lies. The love. The loss. Victoria listened without interrupting, and when he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. You're an idiot, she said finally. I know. But you're a fixable idiot. If you actually want to fix this. How? She won't talk to me. She won't come back. And she shouldn't. I don't deserve her forgiveness. Victoria sat across from him. You're right. You don't deserve it. But maybe this isn't about what you deserve. Maybe it's about what she needs. What does that mean? It means stop thinking about yourself. Stop thinking about your guilt and your pain and your regret. Start thinking about Jane. What does she need right now? Theodore shook his head. I don't know. Space. Time. To never see me again. She needs to know the truth wasn't all lies. That what you felt for her was real, even if how it started was wrong. She needs to know she wasn't a fool for trusting you, that there was something genuine worth trusting. Victoria leaned forward. And most importantly, she needs to know that you understand what you did wrong and why it was wrong. Not just, I'm sorry I hurt you. But, I understand exactly how I hurt you and I will never do anything like that again. How do I show her that? She won't see me. Then you find another way. You prove it with actions, not words. You show her that you've learned from this. That you've changed. That losing her changed you. How? Victoria smiled sadly. I can't tell you that, little brother. You have to figure that out yourself. But I will say this, if you love her the way you say you do, you'll find a way. Even if that way is letting her go. After Victoria left, Theodore sat at his desk and thought about what she'd said. About what Jane needed versus what he wanted. About redemption and change and proving that love could be more than words. An idea began to form. It was risky. It might not work. Jane might reject it entirely. But he had to try. Had to show her that she'd changed him. That what they had, even built on a foundation of lies, had been real enough to transform him completely. He picked up his phone and started making calls. Jane spent day 24 in a shelter. She'd swallowed her pride and accepted a bed, understanding that survival mattered more than dignity. The shelter was crowded and loud and smelled like desperation, but it was warm and safe. She sat on her assigned cot and stared at her phone. Theodore's messages had stopped after the first 50. Now there was just silence. Good, she told herself. That's what you wanted. But the silence hurt more than she expected. The absence of his calls and texts felt like abandonment, even though she'd been the one to leave. A woman in the cot next to her, older, weathered by street life, noticed her staring at her phone. Boy trouble? She asked. Jane almost laughed. You could say that. He do you wrong? Yeah. He's sorry. Says he is. The woman nodded wisely. Question is, do you believe him? And if you do, can you forgive him? I don't know. He lied to me. About everything. About why he approached me in the first place. Why'd he approach you? Jane hesitated, then figured what the hell. Because of a bet. His friends bet him he couldn't make a homeless girl fall in love with him. So he picked me. The woman whistled. That's cold. Yeah. Did he make you fall in love? Yes. Did he fall in love back? Jane thought about Theodore's face when he'd confessed. The devastation. The genuine anguish. I think so. I think he really did. Then maybe the bet don't matter anymore. How can it not matter? It's how everything started. It poisons everything that came after. The woman shrugged. Baby girl, I've been on these streets for 15 years. I've seen a lot of people and a lot of stories. And here's what I learned. How you start don't determine how you finish. People change. They make mistakes and they grow. The question isn't whether he was wrong at the beginning. Question is whether he's different at the end. What if he's not? What if he hasn't changed? Then you walk away and you don't look back. But what if he has? What if losing you made him into someone better? You gonna punish him forever for who he was, or give him a chance to show you who he's become? Jane stared at her phone, at Theodore's last message. I can't fix this, can I? I destroyed everything. God, Jane, I'm so sorry. I don't know if I can trust him again, she admitted. Trust ain't something you give all at once. It's something you build. Little by little. Day by day. Maybe you can't trust him with everything right now. But can you trust him with one conversation? One chance to show you he's learned. Could she? Jane didn't know. But the woman's words planted a seed. A small, fragile possibility that maybe, this didn't have to be the end. Day 25. Theodore stood in front of the city council, presenting a proposal he'd spent all night preparing. The Mitchell Foundation will be funding a new initiative, he announced to the assembled officials and press. We're establishing a comprehensive support system for San Francisco's homeless population. Not just shelters. Full support. Housing assistance, job training, mental health services, addiction treatment, educational scholarships. Everything someone needs to rebuild their life with dignity. Cameras flashed. Reporters called out questions. Mr. Mitchell, this is quite a change from your usual investment focus. What inspired this? Theodore thought about Jane. About her courage and strength. About everything she'd taught him. I met someone who showed me that we've failed our most vulnerable citizens. We've treated homelessness as an individual failure rather than a systemic one. We've made it nearly impossible for people to escape poverty once they're in it. This initiative is about changing that. It's about creating real pathways out of homelessness, not just temporary band-aids. How much are you committing to this? $20 million initially. More as needed. And I'll be working with city officials, nonprofits, and, most importantly, people with lived experience of homelessness to design programs that actually work. After the press conference, his phone rang. Victoria. I saw the news. That's good, Teddy. That's really good. It's not about looking good. It's about actually helping. I know. That's why it's good. You're thinking about the problem, not your image. That's growth. It's too little too late. Maybe. But it's something. And sometimes something is all we can offer. Jane saw the press conference on the shelter's communal TV. She watched Theodore announce his initiative, watched him talk passionately about dignity and systemic change, watched him commit resources that could actually make a difference. And she saw something in his face she recognized. Genuine commitment. Real change. This wasn't a publicity stunt. This was a man who'd been transformed. The woman from the next cot sat beside her. That your boy? Was. Maybe. I don't know. He's doing good work. Yeah. Because of you, I bet. Because you showed him what it was like. What it's really like. Jane felt tears prick her eyes. Maybe. You should talk to him. I don't know what to say. Start with hello. See where it goes from there. Day 26. Theodore received a text from an unknown number. Ocean Beach. Sunset. If you want to talk. His heart stopped. Jane. He texted back immediately. I'll be there. The afternoon stretched like eternity. Theodore changed clothes 3 times, rehearsed what he'd say a dozen times, and still felt completely unprepared when he finally drove to the beach. She was there, sitting on the sand where they'd sat before. She didn't turn when he approached, but he knew she'd heard him. Thank you for agreeing to see me, Theodore said quietly, sitting a respectful distance away. I saw your press conference. Yeah. $20 million. That's serious. It's necessary. And it's not enough, but it's a start. They sat in silence for a moment, watching the waves. Finally, Jane spoke. Why did you do it? The initiative. Was it to impress me? To earn forgiveness? No. I did it because you were right. About all of it. About my tower and my isolation and my complete disconnection from real problems. I did it because meeting you, knowing you, showed me what I'd been missing. What really matters. That doesn't erase what you did. I know. Nothing can erase it. But I wanted to show you that knowing you changed me. That losing you changed me. That I learned from my mistakes, even if it's too late for us. Jane turned to look at him for the first time, and Theodore saw the pain in her eyes. The betrayal. But also something else. Something that might have been hope. The woman at the shelter asked me if I thought you'd changed, Jane said. If losing me made you different. What did you tell her? I said I didn't know. But watching that press conference, I think maybe you have changed. Or at least, you're trying to. I am. Jane, I swear I am. I'm not the same person who took that bet. That person was hollow and cold and convinced that emotions were weakness. But you showed me that emotions are what make us human. That caring about someone is strength, not weakness. That love, real love, is worth any risk. You loved me. I love you. Present tense. I will probably love you for the rest of my life, whether you're in it or not. Jane's eyes filled with tears. How am I supposed to believe that? How am I supposed to trust that it's real when everything started as a lie? I don't know. I can't prove it. All I can do is show you, day by day, that I mean what I say. That I've learned and grown and become someone worthy of your trust. But I understand if that's not enough. I understand if you can't forgive me. I want to forgive you, Jane whispered. God, I want to. Because I love you too, and that makes this so much harder. It would be easier if I could just hate you. If I could walk away and never look back. But I can't. Because somewhere in all those lies, there were real moments. Real connection. Real love. Theodore's heart hammered. There were so many real moments. Every laugh, every conversation, every time I held you, that was all real. The lie was how we met. But everything after, everything we built together, that was genuine. How do I know that? How do I separate the lie from the truth? Maybe you can't. Maybe the lie will always be part of our story. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we can acknowledge that we started wrong and still build something right. Maybe we can let the truth of what we became matter more than the lie of how we began. Jane looked out at the ocean, and Theodore waited, barely breathing, while she processed his words. Finally, she said, I need time. I need space to figure out if I can really forgive this. If I can trust you again. I understand. But I don't want to lose you completely. I don't want to throw away everything we had because of how it started. What are you saying? She turned to face him fully. I'm saying I need to rebuild trust slowly. I need you to prove to me, through actions not just words, that you've changed. That you understand what you did wrong. That you'll never lie to me again. I won't. I swear I won't. Jane, I will spend the rest of my life proving to you that you can trust me. However long it takes. It might take a while. I have time. I have all the time in the world. Jane nodded slowly. Okay. Then let's start over. But really start over. No penthouse, no trust fund, no billionaire savior complex. Just two people getting to know each other honestly. Can you do that? Yes. Absolutely yes. And I'm using the trust fund. Theodore blinked. You are. Not all of it. But enough to get an apartment, go to school, build a real life. I'm not letting pride make me stupid. You hurt me, but that doesn't mean I have to hurt myself by refusing help I genuinely need. That's good. That's really good. But the money comes with a condition. Anything. You work with me on your homeless initiative. You don't just throw money at the problem and walk away. You actually listen to people who've been through it. You include us in the planning and decision-making. You treat us as experts in our own experiences. Theodore nodded. Deal. I'd already planned to do that, but having you involved would make it so much better. Your insight, your experience, it's invaluable. They sat in silence for a moment, both of them processing what had just happened. They hadn't fixed everything. The hurt was still there. The betrayal still stung. But they'd found a path forward. a possibility of healing. Can I ask you something? Theodore said. Sure. At the shelter, the woman you talked to. What else did she say? Jane smiled slightly. She said trust is something you build. Little by little. Day by day. And she asked if I could trust you with one conversation, one chance to show me you'd learned. She paused. I think I can. I think I can trust you with that much. That's all I need. A chance. I'll earn the rest. The sun was setting, painting the sky in oranges and purples. They sat together on the sand, not quite touching but not quite apart, and watched the waves crash endlessly against the shore. Life keeps going, Jane said softly, echoing her mother's words. No matter what happens, the waves keep coming. Is that what your mom used to say? Yeah. She said it meant you have to keep going too. Keep fighting. Keep hoping. Theodore reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he took her hand. Then that's what we'll do. We'll keep going. Together, if you'll let me. Separately if that's what you need. But we'll both keep going. Jane squeezed his hand. Together. But slowly. Carefully. Building trust one day at a time. One day at a time, Theodore agreed. And as the sun dipped below the horizon and the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, two broken people sat together on a beach and decided that maybe, just maybe, redemption was possible after all. Maybe love could survive betrayal if both people were willing to do the hard work of rebuilding. Maybe second chances were real. Maybe hope wasn't so dangerous after all. 3 months later, Jane stood in front of her new apartment, a modest one-bedroom in the Mission District with hardwood floors and big windows that let in the morning light. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't Theodore's penthouse. But it was hers. Truly hers. She unlocked the door and stepped inside, still marveling at the simple miracle of having a key. Of having a place that no one could take away. Of having a home. The furniture was second-hand, but comfortable. Books lined the shelves she'd assembled herself. Photos of her mother sat on the mantel. And on the kitchen counter, a coffee maker that Theodore had given her, not as a grand gesture, but because he'd remembered she liked coffee black with 2 sugars. Small things. That's what the past 3 months had been about. Small, consistent things. Theodore had kept his promise. He'd given her space while proving he'd changed. They'd started over, meeting for coffee once a week at a neutral cafe. Just talking. No pressure. No expectations. Getting to know each other honestly, without the urgency of her homelessness or the weight of his guilt. He'd told her about his mother's death, about becoming cold to survive the pain. About building his empire to prove his father wrong. About the loneliness of success. She'd told him about the good years with her mother, before the cancer. About her dreams of teaching. About the terror of losing everything. About learning to be invisible just to survive. Slowly, carefully, they'd started to build something new. Something real. Jane's phone buzzed. A text from Theodore. Good luck on your first day. You're going to be amazing. She smiled. Today was her first day of classes at San Francisco State University. She'd enrolled in the literature program, using the trust fund for tuition and expenses. It felt surreal, being a college student at 23, finally pursuing the dream she'd put away. But surreal in the best way. She texted back, "Thank you. Coffee this weekend? Wouldn't miss it." Jane grabbed her backpack, a new one, but she'd kept the old one too, a reminder of where she'd been, and headed out to catch the bus. She could afford a car now, but she liked the bus. Liked staying connected to the city, to the people she'd been invisible among for so long. At the bus stop, she saw a young woman with a cardboard sign. Homeless. Hungry. Anything helps. Jane stopped, reached into her wallet, and pulled out a 20. But more than that, she sat down beside the woman. "Hi," Jane said. "I'm Jane." The woman looked suspicious. "What do you want?" "Nothing. I just wanted to talk." If that's okay. Why? Because I was where you are 9 months ago. And someone talked to me when everyone else just walked past. It mattered. The woman's expression softened. You were homeless. Yeah. For 9 months. It was the hardest thing I've ever been through. How'd you get out? Jane thought about that question. The complicated answer involved Theodore and the bet and betrayal and forgiveness. But the simpler answer was more important. Help. And hope. Someone helped me when I needed it, and I found hope that things could get better. And eventually, they did. That's it? Help and hope. That's it. And also not giving up, even when giving up seemed easier. Jane handed her the 20 along with a card. This is for a program I work with. They provide housing assistance, job training, mental health services. Everything you need to get back on your feet. It's not perfect, but it's real help. Not just a shelter for one night. The woman took the card, studying it. You work with them? I'm a consultant. I help design programs based on what actually helps people, not what sounds good in a boardroom. Because I've been there. I know what it's like. Thank you. The woman's voice cracked. For seeing me. For not just walking past. You're not invisible. You matter. Don't forget that. Jane's bus came, and she got on, watching the woman through the window as they pulled away. She'd learned that from Theodore. The difference one person could make by simply paying attention. By seeing someone. And she'd learned it from her own experience too. How crucial it was to be seen. To be treated like a human being rather than a problem or a statistic. The Mitchell Foundation's homeless initiative had launched 6 weeks ago. Theodore had been true to his word, involving people with lived experience in every decision. Jane had been part of the planning committee, along with a dozen others who'd experienced homelessness. They'd designed programs that actually addressed root causes rather than just symptoms. Housing first. Mental health support. Job training that led to real careers. Educational opportunities. Legal assistance. Everything someone needed to rebuild a life with dignity. It was working. Already, over 200 people had found stable housing through the program. Dozens more were in job training or back in school. The numbers were growing every week. And Theodore was involved in every aspect. Not just writing checks, but showing up. Listening. Learning. He'd volunteered at the Housing Placement Center every Saturday, helping people fill out applications and navigate the system. He'd lobbied city officials for policy changes. He'd used his connections and influence to create real change. Jane had watched him transform from the man who'd taken that cruel bet into someone who genuinely cared about making a difference. Who understood that wealth meant responsibility, not just privilege. She'd watched him become someone she could trust again. Theodore sat in a conference room at Mitchell Industries, but his mind was on Jane. Her first day of college. He wanted to be there, wanted to see her off, but he'd learned to respect boundaries. To let her have her own life, her own victories, without making everything about them. It was hard. Every instinct told him to be there, to support her, to celebrate with her. But Jane had asked for space to pursue her education without him hovering, and he'd agreed. Trust meant respecting her needs, even when it was difficult. Mr. Mitchell? He looked up. His assistant stood in the doorway. Sorry. What were you saying? The quarterly reports are ready for review. Right. Thank you. He tried to focus on the numbers, but his thoughts kept drifting. To Jane in a classroom, finally pursuing her dreams. To the coffee date they had scheduled this weekend. To the slow, careful progress they were making towards something real. They hadn't kissed since that night on the beach 3 months ago. Hadn't even held hands beyond that one moment at sunset. They were taking things glacially slow, rebuilding trust through consistency rather than grand gestures. And Theodore was fine with that. More than fine. Because he'd learned that real love wasn't about passion and intensity. It was about showing up. Being reliable. Keeping promises. Earning trust one small action at a time. His phone buzzed. A text from Jane. First class was amazing. Professor asked what made me interested in literature. I told her about reading on the streets, about how books were escape and salvation. She said that's what literature is supposed to be. Theodore smiled, texting back, "That's beautiful. I'm so proud of you. Thank you. For everything. For believing in me. Always." He set down his phone and returned to the quarterly reports, but something had shifted inside him. The numbers that once consumed his attention seemed less important now. They were still necessary. The company's success funded the foundation's work, but they weren't everything anymore. Jane had taught him that. Had shown him that success without purpose was just accumulation. That wealth without compassion was just numbers in an account. She'd taught him how to be human again. Saturday came. Theodore arrived at their usual cafe 15 minutes early, ordered 2 coffees, hers black with 2 sugars, his with cream, and claimed their favorite table by the window. When Jane walked in, his heart still did that complicated flip. She wore jeans and a sweater, simple clothes, but she looked beautiful. She'd gained healthy weight over the past 3 months, her cheeks fuller, her eyes brighter. She looked like someone who slept well and ate regularly and didn't have to fight for survival every day. She looked happy. "Hey," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Hey yourself. How was your week?" "Exhausting. Amazing. Overwhelming. I forgot how much homework college involves." She took her coffee, smiling when she saw he'd remembered exactly how she liked it. "But I love it. Every assignment, every reading, every discussion. I love learning again. Tell me about your classes." She did, her enthusiasm infectious. American literature. African American studies. Composition. Psychology. Theodore listened, asking questions, genuinely interested in everything she shared. This had become their rhythm. Meeting for coffee, talking about their weeks, slowly building intimacy through conversation rather than physical closeness. It was different from before. More intentional. More real. "What about you?" Jane asked. "How's the foundation work going?" "Really well. We just got approval from the city to expand the housing program. We'll be able to serve 300 more people by the end of the year." "That's incredible. It's necessary. There's so much more to do. But it's a start." He paused. "I have to thank you again. For pushing me to include people with lived experience in the planning. It's made all the difference. You would have figured it out, eventually. Maybe. But you got me there faster. You've made me better at this. At everything, really." Jane looked down at her coffee, a small smile playing at her lips. "You've made me better too. You believed in me when I'd stopped believing in myself. That mattered." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, and Theodore felt the question building inside him. The question he'd been wanting to ask for weeks but hadn't found the courage. "Jane," he said carefully, "can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you think you'll ever be able to fully forgive me? For the bet, for the lies, for everything?" She looked at him for a long moment. "Honestly, I don't know. Some days I think I have forgiven you. Other days the hurt comes back and I remember how betrayed I felt." She reached across the table and took his hand, the first time she'd initiated physical contact in months. "But I'm trying. And I think that's what matters. Not whether forgiveness is complete, but whether I'm willing to keep trying. That's all I can ask for. The thing is," Jane continued, "I've realized that forgiveness isn't a destination. It's not something you reach and then you're done. It's a choice you make every day. Every day, I choose to remember the good parts along with the bad. I choose to see how you've changed. I choose to believe that people can grow from their mistakes. Even mistakes as big as mine? Even those. Because if I've learned anything from being homeless, from losing everything and rebuilding, It's that people are more than their worst moments. We're all works in progress. Theodore felt something tight in his chest loosen. You're remarkable. You know that. I'm just trying to survive. Same as everyone else. No. You're doing more than surviving. You're thriving. You're growing. You're choosing hope even when it's scary. That's remarkable. Jane squeezed his hand. We're both growing. Together, even when we're apart. That's what I like about this. About us. There's an us. She smiled. Yeah. There's an us. A different us than before, but an us nonetheless. What does this us look like? I don't know yet. We're figuring it out as we go. But I know I want you in my life, Theo. Not as a savior or a benefactor or someone who rescued me. Just as you. The man who makes me laugh and challenges me to think and shows up consistently, week after week, proving that he means what he says. I can be that. I want to be that. Good. Because I'm not going anywhere. I'm planted now. I've got an apartment and school and a life I'm building. And I want you to be part of that life, if you want to be. I want to be. More than anything. They finished their coffee, talking about lighter things, a funny incident in Jane's psychology class, a disaster at one of Theodore's board meetings. Easy conversation. Natural. Real. When it was time to go, they stood outside the cafe, neither quite ready to say goodbye. Hey, Theo. Jane said. Yeah. Thank you. For being patient. For respecting my boundaries. For not pushing for more than I was ready to give. That meant everything. Thank you for giving me a second chance. For believing I could change. Jane stepped closer, rose on her toes, and kissed his cheek. See you next week. Theodore's heart thundered. Yeah. Next week. He watched her walk away, and felt something he hadn't felt in months. Pure, uncomplicated joy. They were going to be okay. It would take time. It would take work. But they were going to make it. What do you think is more important in a relationship? A perfect beginning, or the willingness to grow and change together? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 6 months after Jane left his penthouse, Theodore organized a gala for the Mitchell Foundation. It was a fundraiser, but more than that, it was a celebration of the lives that had been changed. The people who'd found housing. The families that had been reunited. The individuals who'd gotten second chances. Jane was there, not as his date, but as a speaker. She'd agreed to share her story, to put a human face on the statistics and data. Theodore sat in the audience, watching her take the stage in a simple but elegant dress. She looked nervous but determined. 9 months ago, Jane began, her voice clear and strong. I was homeless. I slept on park benches and in doorways. I counted pennies to afford day-old sandwiches. I was invisible to most of the world. Just another face in the crowd of people society has decided aren't worth seeing. The room was silent, everyone riveted by her words. Then someone saw me. Someone stopped and talked to me like I was a human being. Like I mattered. And that changed everything. She paused, her eyes finding Theodore in the crowd. That person made mistakes. Big ones. But he also showed me something important, that we're all more than our worst decisions. That change is possible. That second chances can lead to extraordinary things. She went on to describe her journey, the trust fund that had seemed like charity but had actually been opportunity. The apartment that had given her stability. The education that was opening doors. The work with the foundation that was letting her help others the way she'd been helped. I'm not here to tell you a fairy tale, Jane said. My life isn't perfect now. I still struggle. I still have bad days. I still sometimes wake up afraid that this will all disappear and I'll be back on the streets. But the difference is, now I have hope. Now I have support. Now I have the tools to build a life worth living. She looked directly at Theodore. And I have people in my life who believe in me. who see my potential, not just my problems, who understand that helping someone isn't about saving them, it's about giving them the resources to save themselves. The applause was thunderous. Jane returned to her seat, and Theodore wanted to hold her, to tell her how proud he was, but he settled for a squeeze of her hand. "You were incredible," he whispered. "I was terrified. Didn't show at all." After the formal program ended, people mingled. Donors wrote checks. Beneficiaries of the program shared their stories. And Theodore found himself standing with Jane on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. "This is what success looks like," Jane said quietly. "Not the money or the gala or the fancy building, but the lives being changed, the people being seen. You taught me that. We taught each other." Theodore turned to face her. "Jane, I need to tell you something." "Okay." 6 months ago, I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me because of pride and stupidity. I spent the worst weeks of my life wondering if I'd ever get a chance to make it right. And then you gave me that chance. You let me prove I'd changed. You trusted me again, even when I didn't deserve it. Theo, let me finish, please. He took her hands. "These past 6 months, rebuilding with you, earning back your trust, learning how to be the kind of man who deserves someone like you. It's been the most important work of my life. More important than my company or my wealth or anything else. Because you're what matters. You're what makes everything else worth doing." Jane's eyes shimmered with tears. "Where is this going?" "I don't know. Wherever you want it to go. I'm not asking for anything more than what we have right now. I'm just telling you that I love you. I will always love you. And I will spend the rest of my life being worthy of the second chance you gave me." "I love you too," Jane whispered. "I tried not to. I tried to protect myself. But I love you, Theodore Mitchell. Not because you're rich or successful or because you helped me, but because you're kind. Because you listened and learned and changed. Because you see people, really see them. Because when you're with me, I feel like the most important person in the world. You are. To me, you are." Theodore cupped her face in his hands, giving her every opportunity to pull away. When she didn't, when she leaned into his touch, he kissed her. It was soft and sweet and full of promise. Full of second chances and hard-won trust and love that had survived betrayal to become something stronger. When they pulled apart, Jane was smiling through her tears. "So what now?" she asked. "Now we keep going. Keep building. Keep choosing each other, every day." "That sounds perfect." They stood on the balcony, wrapped in each other's arms, while the city sprawled below them. And both of them thought about how far they'd come. From a cruel bet to genuine love. From lies to truth. From broken to healing. It wasn't a perfect ending. There were still hard conversations ahead. Still moments of doubt to work through. Still trust to rebuild. But it was their ending. Real and messy and beautiful and earned. And that made it perfect enough. 1 year after the bet, Jane stood in Theodore's, their new home. Not the sterile penthouse, but a house in Pacific Heights with a yard and character and room for all of Jane's books and Theodore's work and a life they were building together. She'd graduated from San Francisco State with honors. She'd been accepted into a graduate program for education, planning to become a teacher. The trust fund had been supplemented by her own earnings from her work with the foundation, and she'd insisted on contributing equally to their shared expenses. They were partners. True partners. Not savior and saved, not billionaire and charity case. Just two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances and chosen to build something real. Theodore came home from work, loosening his tie, and found Jane in the kitchen making dinner. "Something smells amazing," he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Just pasta. Nothing fancy. It's perfect." He kissed her neck. "How was your day?" "Good. I mentored 3 students from the Foundation's scholarship program. One of them got accepted to Berkeley." That's incredible. I know. She was so excited she cried. It reminded me of when I got my acceptance letter. That feeling of doors opening, of possibilities. Theodore turned her to face him. You've changed so many lives, Jane. You know that. We've changed them. Together. Together, he agreed. They cooked dinner side by side, moving around each other with practiced ease. Over pasta and wine, they talked about their days, made plans for the weekend, discussed an upcoming vacation. Normal things. Domestic things. Things that Theodore had never thought he wanted until he'd met Jane and discovered that ordinary life with the right person was extraordinary. After dinner, they curled up on the couch with a movie neither of them really watched. Jane's head rested on Theodore's shoulder, his arm around her, both of them simply content to be together. Theo, Jane said during a commercial break. Do you ever think about how we started? About the bet? He stiffened slightly. They didn't talk about the bet much anymore. Sometimes. Why? Because I realized something. Bradley and Jonathan thought they were proving you couldn't fall in love. They thought they were showing that you were cold and heartless and untouchable. They were right. At the time, I was all those things. But they were also wrong. Because you did fall in love. The bet didn't prove you were incapable of emotion. It proved you were capable of change. Of growth. Of becoming someone better than you were. Theodore was quiet for a moment. I never thought about it that way. They thought love was weakness. But falling in love with me, really loving me, not just the idea of me, that took more strength than staying closed off. Opening your heart after building all those walls, that was the bravest thing you could have done. You made it worth it. We made it worth it. Both of us. We chose to be brave. To be vulnerable. To risk getting hurt again for the chance at something real. Theodore kissed the top of her head. Best risk I ever took. Even better than starting your company? Not even close. The company made me successful. You made me human. They sat in comfortable silence, and Theodore thought about how far they'd come. From that first day on Market Street to this moment on their couch, they'd traveled an impossible distance. Had survived betrayal and forgiveness and the hard work of rebuilding trust. And somehow, against all odds, they'd made it. Jane. Theodore said. Yeah. Marry me. She sat up, staring at him. What? Marry me. Not because I'm trying to save you or because I feel guilty or any reason except that I love you and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Marry me because we're partners. Because we've built something real. Because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Jane's eyes filled with tears. You're serious. Completely serious. I know we've talked about taking things slow, and we can have a long engagement if you want, but I need you to know that this is where I'm headed. Toward forever with you. Theo, She stopped, overwhelmed. You don't have to answer now. Think about it. Take your time. I just wanted you to know. Yes. What? Yes, I'll marry you. Because you're right, we've built something real. And I want forever with you too. Theodore pulled out a ring, simple, elegant, exactly Jane's style. He'd been carrying it for a week, waiting for the right moment. But sitting on their couch in their home, living their ordinary, extraordinary life together, this was the right moment. He slipped it on her finger, and it fit perfectly. I love you, Jane Williams. I love you, Theodore Mitchell. They kissed, and it tasted like promise. Like second chances. Like a future they'd built together from the rubble of broken trust and hard-won forgiveness. Outside, the city lights twinkled. The ocean waves kept their eternal rhythm. Life went on, the way it always did. But inside their home, two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way held each other and dreamed of the life they'd continue to build. A life of purpose and partnership. Of love that had survived its worst test and emerged stronger. A life that had started with a lie but became the truest thing either of them had ever known. The community center in the Tenderloin district buzzed with activity. Children did homework in the tutoring center. Adults attended job skills workshops. Families met with housing counselors. And in the center of it all, coordinating programs and welcoming visitors, were Jane and Theodore Mitchell. Jane, now a certified teacher, ran the educational programs. Theodore had stepped back from day-to-day management of his company to focus on the foundation's work. Together, they'd expanded the homeless initiative to serve thousands of people across the Bay Area. But more than that, they'd created something that mattered. A place where people weren't just statistics or problems to be solved. Where dignity and hope were as important as food and shelter. Where everyone who walked through the door was seen. Really seen. Mrs. Mitchell? A young woman approached Jane nervously. I wanted to thank you. I got the apartment. I move in next week. Jane hugged her. That's wonderful. I'm so proud of you. None of this would have happened without your program. Without people who actually cared. You did the work. We just provided the opportunity. After the woman left, Theodore found Jane in her office, updating case files. Another success story, he asked. Another person getting a second chance. Just like we did. He pulled her into his arms. Have I told you lately that you're amazing? You might have mentioned it once or twice. Well, it bears repeating. You've changed the world, Jane. One person at a time. We've changed it. Together. Together, he agreed. A small voice called from the doorway. Mommy. Daddy. Look what I made. Their daughter, 3-year-old Hope, named for the thing that had saved them both, ran in with a drawing. It was mostly scribbles, but in the center, 3 stick figures held hands. It's our family, Hope announced proudly. Jane scooped her up, covering her face with kisses. Theodore wrapped his arms around both of them, and for a moment, everything was perfect. Did I ever tell you about how I met your daddy? Jane asked Hope. Tell me again. Well, once upon a time, your daddy made a big mistake. But instead of giving up, he learned and grew and became someone wonderful. And he taught Mommy that people can change. That second chances are real. That love is worth fighting for. And Mommy taught Daddy how to be brave, Theodore added. How to open his heart even when it was scary. How to see people, really see them, and understand that everyone has a story worth hearing. Hope listened with wide eyes, even though she was too young to understand most of it. But someday she would understand. Someday, they'd tell her the whole story. The bet, the betrayal, the forgiveness, the redemption. And she'd learn what her parents had learned, that we're all more than our mistakes. That love can heal even the deepest wounds. That second chances can lead to extraordinary things. That hope, real, hard-won, courageous hope, is the most powerful force in the world. As the sun set over San Francisco, the Mitchell family left the community center together. They went home to their house full of books and laughter and love. And they lived their ordinary, extraordinary life. A life that proved Bradley and Jonathan wrong. A life that showed that love isn't weakness, it's the greatest strength of all. A life that started with a cruel bet but became a beautiful story of redemption, transformation, and the power of second chances. Theodore had dated a homeless girl to win a bet. But she'd stolen his heart and given him something far more valuable in return, his humanity. And together, they'd built something that no amount of money could buy. A love that was real, hard-won, and absolutely worth fighting for. We'd love to hear from you. Have you ever gotten a second chance that changed your life? Have you forgiven someone who hurt you deeply? What do you think about Jane and Theodore's journey? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible stories of love, redemption, and second chances. Thank you so much for watching from wherever you are in the world. May you all find your own second chances and the courage to take them. Until next time.